Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 3, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. Also known as the NXTGEN, this is the series that aims to replicate the real-world British Touring Car Championship in its style and flavour of racing, with multiple touring car racing class machines competing for ultimate glory across two drivers' championships of both the overall and the Pro-Am category, and also the all-important Teams Championship. And we return today with round 6 of 10 in the United Kingdom at the one and only Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. We return after the mid-season break, which saw many a driver go into the break on a high, and with the rest and a week afforded to them, now everybody will be coming back in full force. But the big question is, who is going to return with racing momentum on their side and carry it through and get the second half of their season off to a flying start? Well, that's the question we aim to answer today, and as our drivers get set and ready to go racing, let's take you through our scheduled times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 19 minutes time, we'll be heading into our qualifying session for today, 15 minutes in duration, and that will kick off at 8:30. And it's going to be critical qualifying, given the fact that Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit is a circuit that is known where track position is key. Albeit that's not to say overtaking is impossible, and indeed we've seen many an overtake over this course over the years of racing at it, whether in the NXTCC, other Next Gen Racing series, or further afield. But you need to be bold on the brakes and know when to make the right play on the inside, because get it right and you'll come away with the position. Get it wrong, however, and it could be a warning from the stewards. Alternatively, you could leave yourself vulnerable to losing places and the drivers behind. After that, we'll make our way to the grid for our first race of the day. As always, we have 3 races on our schedule, and the first of our 3 sprint races, all 15 laps in duration, will be at 8:45. After that, we'll take a brief breather before returning at approximately 9:25 for the build-up to race number 2. And then we'll take another breather before returning at approximately 10:05 for the all-important race number 3 with the partial reverse grid. Of course, we do have that reverse grid there to mix things up, and we'll talk a little bit more about how the positions will be set for the races as we go deeper into today's programme. Now, welcome to all of you tuning in live, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook at the official Next Gen Racing media platforms. Indeed, if you go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing, you could be tuning in there. Alternatively, if you're a Facebook user, you may be at facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. But we must also welcome those of you on Twitch who are tuning via the unofficial broadcast at twitch.tv/TX141. And well, the big question is, who is TX141? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the entirety of the season. And what a season it has been thus far in this series that's sponsored by Douglas Motorsport. But as we get ready to charge into another half of the season, well, let's take you through the calendar and what still lies in wait. And as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 18th of April with the Silverstone circuit in the United Kingdom. And there, when we kicked things off, it was all about the fast charges around the wide open road surface, and many a driver really having to settle the score in the early stages and get themselves set with regards to who their competition would be within their respective class. But after that, things calmed down to a degree at Imola, at the Italian circuit on the 25th of April, when now we started to see some rivalries build, and with those rivals came all-important point scores, which would carry our drives forward into round number 3. Then we made our way to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in Canada, and on the 2nd of May, we got to see the power of the Success Ballast in its ultimate work, albeit we saw Success Ballast really have an effect on a good number of drivers at Imola, particularly John Higgins Jr. in the Pro class, but many a driver also came unstuck in Canada, and perhaps most notably Jamie Dory in the Honda Civic Type R, who found himself, well, in fact the Honda Veloster I should say, carrying maximum Success Ballast and able to overtake drivers on the corners, but losing all speed on the straights. Then in round number 4, we made our way to Long Beach in USA, and in particular to the Californian state, for round number 4 on the 9th of May, and what a round it was in our first ever street race venue. And there we saw in downtown Long Beach our drivers take on the battle that was the run around the fountain, the run through the sweeping corners, down the back straights and the start-finish straight, and also the very tenacious hairpin. And whilst we did have to have a safety car towards the end of proceedings, only one safety car was called, and that was our limit in the fact that we saw some absolutely fantastic racing indeed. The NXTCC series flying the flag proud with regards to racing around the streets of USA. In round number 5, last time out, we made our way to the sprint striker version of the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit on the 16th of May. And there in Germany, we got to see the first half of the season end on an absolute bang for one driver in particular, and that was Mikey Doble. Reigning overall champion and pros champion for NXTGEN Season 2, he came back to bring home his first 2 victories of the season and finds himself right at the top of the stands going into tonight. And well, now we've had our break week. We return as of the 30th of May, which is today, with the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And some of you right now may be scratching your chins or scratching your heads and going, wasn't it meant to be the Alton Park historic Hislop circuit? Well, your memory would serve you correct. However, we have had to switch to Brands Hatch due to the fact that given the size of our field, and to put it in perspective, we have had on average 40 drivers attend to each and every round so far. In our season opener, of course, we had 54 drivers take to the Silverstone International Circuit, but given the volume of drivers expected to be on the grid, we cannot guarantee that every driver will have a pit stall available to them if we go to Alton Park, and therefore we'd have to exclude certain entrants. So instead, we decided to switch the venue, and we either gave the drivers the choice of Donington Park, alternatively Brands Hatch, and Brands Hatch was voted for, and that's what they've gone for, and therefore we're racing there. But in round number 7, next week on the 6th of June, we make our way back to the United States of America for the one and only circuit of the Americas, and whilst we won't be running the full layout of the circuit, we'll be running one of the cut-down versions. In particular, I do believe it'll be the East layout, and there we're going to see some absolutely brilliant racing at a very young circuit in the state of Texas, but one that's not to be underestimated. Then in round number 8 on the 13th of June, we make our way down under to Australia for the home of horsepower that is Sandown. And well, if you're looking for a circuit that sounds a little bit odd, why would we use a V8 supercar circuit for touring car racing? We are going to be pleasantly surprised when we make our way to Australia, because it's very 2 short straights, the 2 drag strip straights, and very complex sequences of corners. It is a circuit where we're going to see our front wheel drive machines absolutely pushed to the limit. And in the penultimate round of the season, we make our way back to the United States of America for the final time in the season, and that'll be on the 20th of June for round number 9 at the Sonoma Raceway, all the way back up on the northern tip of the state of California along the west coast. And then we bring it all to a close with the Hockenheimring playing host our drives for the season finale on the 27th of June in Germany. And will the Hockenheimring, a circuit that needs no introduction with the caliber of the racing it can deliver, and that's where we're going to bring it all to an end. But speaking of our championship standings, what about our championship overall so far? And let's take a look at it here. And well, after what is 5 rounds of racing, Mikey Doble now leads the pro driver there on 149 points to the 126 of Andrew Pike. The success ballast continues to bring surprises. Indeed, we see a swaying championship momentum from round to round, and now with Mikey Doble leading the way, the challenge that is going to be facing him is, will he be able to hold on to that lead come the end of today, or at least stay inside the top 5? With success ballast applying to all top 10 drivers overall, of course, it is going to be a challenge at the minimum. And Andrew Pike there from the Sim Racing Collective will be primed to try and also hold on to that P2, with Jamie Dory a further 5 points behind. Then in P4, Adam Delman a further 2 off, and it's Andrea Romy in P5 and 115. But the separation of the top 5 being only what is 34 points there really goes to showing the fact that it's anybody's game, and there are no firm favourites currently. Rafael Labato at P6 on 108 points, 7 off of the top 5. He'll be looking to try and jump ahead of his rivals today, albeit he's got to be aware of the fact he has John Higgins Jr. in hot pursuit, with Daniel Mulqueen, Marcello Reales and Martin Shirley completing your top 10. And only a point outside the top 10, Alan McCain, the pro driver there, ahead of Daniel Homer based on result countback, with Joseph Doe, Sam J. Smith and Gavin Garner completing your top 15. And Gavin Garner, one of those drivers who continues to try and show resilience round after round, despite the results not necessarily coming his way, the pro driver continuing to hang in the top 15 and trying to break back into the top 10. Marco Benatelli P16 ahead of Andrea Talasco, and Talasco being our leading pro-am driver in the overall standings going into tonight on 52 points, to clear of Wayne Douglas, with James Holman and Michael Lees completing your top 20. From the 44 points of Michael Lees, we then come on to wins the 44 points of Reese Watt, the difference being result countback once again, and the JW Motorsport driver there trying to hunt down a top 20 finish this season, but finding it is an absolute challenge to try and break his way into the top 20 on a regular basis. Alex Meredith, a fan favourite, a further 5 points behind in P22, with Dario Fighter, Linus Burstrom and Benjamin McCuskey completing your top 25, and all of these drivers pro-ams. If you don't see a P next to their name, it means they're a pro-am, with Neil Ferrier P26 there, who has been moved to the pro class as of this round, and we'll give you an update on all the class swaps very shortly. But Neil Ferrier's performances in round number 5 mean he has been moved up by default, and then Josh Millington, Isaac Doble, Paul Scott and Melvin Erkison completing your top 30. In the battle for P31, it's Lee Horner and Luke Jones, both on 14 points, and both drivers having very mixed mixed fortunes over the first half of the season, with Horn having a great start to his season, but then having difficulty in the last couple of rounds. Conversely, Luke Jones having an absolutely disastrous first couple of rounds, but in the last 2 rounds in particular, really finding some momentum to build. And then Mark Sykes a point off in P33, ahead of Ivan Balkamp and Daniel Fedder. Then we have Nick Clibbins and Robert Dasunik behind Fedder based on result countback in the respective order, with Matthew Addy, Matthew Cheverton and James Mansell completing your top 40. And then looking outside the top 40, our last driver with a point against his name is Massimo Boni on 2 points in P41, and yet to score any points, Gabriel Yilmaz, Jackie Chalmers, Jake Pitt, Jonathan Collins, Josh Brown, Mark Harris-Smith, Matthew Jolly, Michael Kurtler, Palamaniti and Phil McDougall. And then on negative points, just the post-round penalties, Costa Chatscontinentino, who has changed car today, so we're expecting him to take a major drop of points going into round number 7. Dylan Flanagan, Philip Bruberg, Chris Byram, Daniel Fritz and Marcello Felix, and that's your 57 overall drivers. Now we come on to the Pro-Am Championship. And of course, this runs alongside, and this is a means of giving our Pro-Am drives even more to fight for outside the overall championship. And Michael Lees now leads the way, only what is 6 points clear of Linus Broström. We have seen 2 different styles between these 2 drives. Michael Lees has been Mr. Consistent throughout in terms of the fact he's constantly picked up points, but he's not had any standout moments with regards to taking major race wins. At the other end of the spectrum, Linus Broström has absolutely delivered on some spectacular moments, and Long Beach in particular, seeing him pick up his first wins in class of the season, and an absolute brilliant drive there, and he'll be looking to try and replicate that tonight. But between them it's 6 points, but further afield is a gap of what is a staggering 19 points to Isaac Doble in P3, and Isaac Doble trying to get himself back into the battle with the top 2. It's Reese Watt a further what is 13 points behind, with Lee Horn in P at 5 down 119, and then 10 points off Benjamin McCluskey, with Alex Meredith 4 off there, and both drivers looking to try and bring down Lee Horn and get themselves into that top 5. Paul Scott, Luke Jones and Dara Effer to complete your top 10, but notably Dara Effer to now what is 16 points off of your top 9, and therefore looking vulnerable to the potential likes of Matthew Cheverton breaking into the top 10 tonight, with the best of the rest driver a further 8 points off. Robert Dasunik in P12 on 67 points, with Mark Sykes only a point behind and Nick Clemens behind him based on result countback. And it's Andrea Talasco, Matthew Addy, Phil McDougall, and Melvin Eckerson, Jake Pitt and Daniel Fadder who complete your top 20 in the Pro-Ams. And as we look outside the top 20, we then see Ivan Balkamp on 30 points in P21, ahead of James Mansell, with Chris Byram, Jonathan Collins and Palamaniti running the P25. Now a point behind him, Massimo Boni in P26, and Marcello Felix, Daniel Fritz, Michael Kurtler and Josh Brown complete your top 30, with Michael Kurtler bringing his first points on the board last round and looking to build a bit more momentum tonight from P29, and then yet to score any points, Gabriel Yilmaz and Matthew Jolly, and then on negative points just to post-round penalties, Costa Chatscontinentino and Philip Bruberg and Dylan Flanagan. But that's an update on the Drivers' Championship standings, and unfortunately we can't bring you an update on the Teams' Championship standings. The points are not available for tonight, and we have had some revisions to the teams, but we'll give you an update on all the standings in relation to the teams as of the start of the next broadcast in a week's time for round number 7. So instead, we now jump immediately to our circuit for today, and it is none other than the Grand Prix layout of the circuit in West Kingsdown in the county of Kent in England and the United Kingdom. Much loved and known across multiple series throughout its history, particularly in touring car, it's the Brands Hatch circuit. Host to British Touring Car Championship and TCR UK on a regular basis, and we stay with the touring car theme, but previously host to the likes of Formula 1 until it was taken away from the calendar due to safety concerns and its FIA grade. It is a circuit that has drawn most, if not all, road racing classes to its venerable tarmac. Indeed, today it sees GT3s race around it from the likes of British GT and GT Wheel Change Sprint, but indeed we also have touring car and many other series that are open wheel, such as Formula 3 and Formula 4. The secret to this circuit is in its variability, but also its narrow road surface. 9 corners which see a multitude of elevation changes, fast flying corners, some heavy braking zones and short straights. It has a little bit of everything minus extended straights, and therefore this is truly a driver's circuit. And to do well here, you need to master the art of nailing your apexes and knowing how wide your car is. And as our drivers make their way around the circuit map provided by iRacing.com, thank you to them for the wonderful simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. We'll see our drivers make their way across the start-finish line and into Paddock Hill Bend at turn number 1. There they'll drop down the major gradient change, looking to manage the off-camber corner as they roll on down and make sure not to let the understeer send them to the gravel. Get it right, they'll charge up the hill towards Druids Bend at turn number 2, while the slice is not the slowest corner on the circuit, and through the hairpin they'll roll the way around before returning to full throttle in the charge down towards turn number 3. At Graham Hill Bend, it's a sweeping left-hander, albeit with downhill braking zone, and therefore we'll see our drivers need to manage the brakes and get the turn in just right. right, and if they do, they'll make their way out towards turn number 4, and going through Surtees corner, well, it's a nasty corner, and it is that one left hand that frustrates so many. In the fact, it feels like it's an eternity before you hit the apex, but if you hit a late enough apex, you'll find yourself straight lining out, back on the throttle, full throttle, all the way down towards turn number 5. But as they charge their way down and up the hill through the Pilgrim's Drop, they'll head into Hawthorne's corner at turn number 5, the fast right-hander and the fastest corner on the circuit, before they make their way up towards turn number 6 at Westfield Bend via the Derek Minter Straight. Coming through the right-hander, it's in a downhill run through Sheen and into Dingledale, and as they come through turn number 7 through the rise, which has caught out many a driver at turn number 7 in the multiple years of racing around here, they'll then have the short run in towards Sterling's corner at turn number 8, the left-hand right-angle corner, which is all about using the road camber and exploiting the exit curve in order to get a good run on the back straight up towards turn number 9, and they're coming through Clark Curve. It's to complete the lap and start it all over again. But speaking of starting things over again, let's give you a quick reminder of the rules which enable us to go racing, and we start off with the fact this is a fixed setup series where our drivers are given a setup ahead of each round which they have to use on their particular car. If they do not use that setup, then they will receive a major penalty. It's effectively the equivalent of a disqualification from the round. Now, driver class rise. Driver classes have been finalised as a round 3. If we see any newly introduced drivers in a given round, they'll be assigned a provisional class, typically Pro, unless we know about their classification beforehand, and then we'll adjust the class accordingly. And in terms of the sprint races, the race 1 grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. The race 2 grid shall be set based on results of race number 1. So what that means in layman's terms is the winner of race 1 starts on pole for race number 2, and we work our way down the finishing positions to set the grid for race 2. And the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on results of race 2, with the reversal position being drawn live from between P13 and P23. Indeed, we'll cut to the commentary booth, and I'll shuffle the lottery bowl around, and I'll draw out 2 balls, add the numbers together from the commentary booth, and that's the number we'll see the grid reverse from. So if we draw the number 15, for example, then we'll see our 15th place finisher in race number 2 start on pole for the purposes of race 3, and we work our way upwards through the finishing positions, and the winner of race 2 starts P15 on the grid for race 3, and the 16th place finishers and downwards, well, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for race number 3. Now, each driver shall have 1 faster pair available in each race, and we're not expecting our drivers to come into the pits unless they need repair work or they picked up a mid-race penalty in terms of drive-through penalty, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount or 30 minutes, whichever one expires first. We do expect the laps to expire first, but if we do have multiple or an extended safety car, then we will see the timer come into effect. Now, with regards to what is race stewarding, an independent race director is stewarding the races for track limit infringements and deployment of the safety car, and as we can see there, penalties for track limit infringements shall be distributed as follows. The first through to third warnings, there's no penalty, they're just warnings. The fourth one, it's a 5-second post-race time penalty. The fifth warning, it's a 10-second post-race time penalty. And the sixth warning, you've earned yourself a drive-through penalty. And said drive-through penalty must be served within 3 laps. Racing incidents, meanwhile, shall be reviewed post-round. And then lastly, coming on to success ballast, as always, we're applying a success ballast to the top 10 drivers in the overall Drivers' Championship based on the standings prior to each round before post-round penalties are applied. And the success ballast you can see today being applied as follows. And Mikey Doble confirmed that has taken the maximum 56.1 kilograms of success ballast in his Hyundai Elantra, and we look forward to seeing how he is able to manage with that. But other notable changes here, Jamie Dory for the first time in a few rounds not having the leading success ballast, instead in P3 of 40.3 kilograms, so you have a little bit more speed available to him in the Veloster. And also notable down there, Martin Shirley taking 4.7 kilograms of success ballast in 10th, and well, he's going to be looking very fast. He has been for the last couple of rounds, but with that a little bit of weight holding back to a degree, we'll have to wait and see. But as all of our drivers get set to go racing, we look back to circuit side now, and one absolutely a wonderful day here at the Brands Hatch circuit. And as all of our drivers get comfortable behind their machines once more, it's an absolutely packed circuit today. We currently have in attendance 39 drivers, and we are expecting 1 or 2 more to join it midway between the races. Not everybody's able to make it to the start of today, but we'll have to wait and see. But as Michael Lees makes his way through Druids Bend at turn number 2 there in the Next Gen Racing yellow car, well, how can you tell for the uninitiated who's pro and who's Pro-Am? We look to the little sashes on the left-hand side of your screen, and you'll notice there, those with a green sash against their name, they are your pros. Meanwhile, drivers like Michael Lees who have a pink-purple sash against their name, they are the ones who are the Pro-Am, so that's the way you distinguish. But at the same time, our Pro-Am drivers are encouraged to battle the pros, given the fact there's an overall championship as well as the Pro-Am championship. And our pros, they only have the overall championship, so they have to battle everybody. But speaking of everybody, let's make sure everybody has a bit of camera time. And as we do see Ian Manners there making his way on through turn number 4, where he's going to be racing for, I do believe, JW Motorsport this season, and he has joined us as of this round, so welcome to Ian Manners. He's listed as racing for DCW Racing, but we'll get that fixed very shortly. And well, we always do get called out a little bit when we have new drivers join us. We don't always have the right driver data available to us immediately, so you'll have to forgive us for the fact we have to make a couple of minor corrections, but still we'll get those corrections sorted, and once they are sorted, well then we are all on okay. But as Manners makes his way on around, we also do look to Paul Scott, and we can see here the Next Gen Racing blue driver in the Audi RS3, not new to the season, but he has been racing since the start of the season and looking to have a good day today, there's no doubt about that. We do have a couple of other new drivers out there on the grid, albeit they're not currently out on circuit, so we're not going to be able to introduce them right now. We'll look to introduce them in qualifying, and also some of the class changes, but we are only moments away. And well, we can see there at the very top of the standings with his new pro status in class, Neil Ferrier is now pro. He's moved from prime to pro immediately after his brilliant performances at the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago, and well, we'll put in the staple down there. And could he be the man today to dominate qualifying, given the fact he is 1/10 faster than everybody else in this final practice session? Well, we'll soon find out. As Gavin Gardner makes his way on through turn at number 8 and down towards turn at number 9, getting himself comfortably set there in the Next Gen Racing Audi. And could we see Garner pull off a blinder today with regards to performances? He does not have success balanced in the car, and therefore that means he's got the most flexible car available as he just cuts his way into the pit lane there, but he's all set and ready to go. So all of our drivers now comfortably in position, and we are ready to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for qualifying. 15 minutes. Who's going to come out on top? Let's find out. But in fact, it does look as our qualifying session has been extended to 20 minutes for today, so that may be a slight change there, which we have not been informed of. So that is going to knock our schedule slightly back by 5 minutes. But as all our drivers make their way out of the pit line, I suspect that may have been extended given the fact it's a very crowded circuit today. But as Jamie Doing makes his way out of the pit lane and up the hill, well, everybody roaring the way on around here. And well, we look to Mikey Doble just making his way out of the pit lane as he gets himself comfortably set, rolling down through turn at number 1. Of course, for Doble, it is going to be pressure aplenty on today for the simple reason that he is going to find himself now being the man to be, and everybody will looking to try and take some points off of him, come left, right and centre. But going from a driver who's very established and of course reigning champion defending this season, and also on the BTCC circuit in the real world for this year, and racing for Climax Racing and running a livery based on his car that he's racing, albeit in the real world series racing in the Vauxhall, whereas here running in the Hyundai Elantra. We do introduce William Chadwick, the Altus Esports driver. Some of you may know him, a big name in the world of iRacing, and we have seen him previously in the likes of the MX-5 series, and will absolutely deliver in there, racing for Team Fordzilla at the time there, but having moved to Altus Esports as of the start of this year, if my memory serves me correctly, and therefore as the Honda Civic Type R driver makes his way on through, he'll be racing in the Pro class, and we look forward to seeing how much of an impact he can have from the outset in this qualifying session. And we also do have in the Prime class join us Philip Garside, and we see him here racing in the Prime class, and he makes his way on around for full send racing, and we look forward to seeing how the Hyundai Veloster driver gets on. And as he rolls his way on down the hill here through Pilgrim's Drop, getting himself set with plenty of tyre temperatures. We do have behind one of the Aztec racing machines, I believe that's Smagsgaz Gal, who's just following suit there as they head in towards the run down the Minter Straight. But as they power their way on through, meanwhile, we do look to a good number of you in the chat, and there are plenty of you here today, and I do apologise if we miss any of you. It's not our intention, but we say hello to Revical in the YouTube chat, who says yes, more racing. Indeed, plenty of racing today as we see Melvin Erkison make his way onto his first lineup in this qualifying session. We also do have Arctic 2 Gaming, and I had a fantastic bank holiday. Thank you, Arctic, and I hope you did as well. I used most of it to rest, and particularly rest my vocal cords in preparation for this round of the NXTCC, because I can tell you one thing, I have barely any voice left, no matter how much water I drink after the races on a Tuesday evening. We also say hello there to what is G Zen High, and he's tuning in from the Twitch chat, who says John, Jack and myself are all ready. So it does sound as though there we do have a number of individuals from Tiki Simsport who are tuning in via the Twitch chat. And why don't you guys get out on circuit in the XTCC? We'd love to see you out on circuit here, and indeed the more the merrier, and I hope you guys are doing well. We also say hello there to Phil McDougall, and Phil McDougall racing for CXR Project Black in this series, and we do try to find him out on circuit at the moment, and here he is in fact in the Honda Civic Type R, Mr. Sneaky as we like to refer to him, in the fact that if you see him out on circuit and he's behind another driver, albeit about 2-3 seconds behind, he will eventually catch up and start to pounce unexpectedly. And whether it be in the NXTCC, alternatively in the Front Wheel Drive Fridays Clio Cup or other series, we have seen Phil McDougall always put on some fantastic response. Indeed, the CXR Project Black team, no strangers to battling hard with other drivers. But as we do look from Phil McDougall to what is excuse me, to, I do believe they're John Edos. We say hello to in the Twitch chat, and they're cheering on, I do believe, Mikey Doble, and we say hello to John Meredith in the YouTube chat as well, who is cheering on Alex Meredith, and all the Meredith family out in full force, as we do see here Alex Meredith making his way into turn number 2 at Druids Bend in the Elantra, and well, setting a good time so far of what is a 34.0, and it's only early doors in this qualifying session. We are expecting this qualifying session to really build up as time goes on. Particularly once we hit around the 10-minute mark, we'll start to see potential signs of the pole position times that come in both classes. But as he makes his way in to Surtees at turn number 4, the deep corner, which can catch out so many drivers. The fact you have to brake ever so late to get to the corner apex and trail brake all the way on through. But as he powers his way on down Pilgrim's Drop now and up towards Hawthorne's corner. Well, Meredith definitely looking strong here today. And well, can he hold on to that provisional prime position all the way up towards where's the end of the session? But as we also say hello there to John O'Cook, who's looking forward to the Carnage, his favourite track in the United Kingdom, Brands Hatch. I'm glad to hear it, Jono. And as your commentator, I'm not biased, but what I can definitely tell you is that Brands Hatch is my local circuit, and I may be extremely supportive and loving of the circuit. Not biased in any way, given the fact I treat all circuits equally, but Brands Hatch just is slightly my favourite compared to others, and we can understand why. We also say hello there to Neil Ferrier in the YouTube chat, and Alan Loof, who is cheering on Ian Manners, who we saw earlier on, and here in fact is Ian Manners again, making his way on through Hawthorns and currently in P20 overall, and what is P7 in the prime class thus far. And we also say hello there to I believe that's Rydaho, who's saying money on Neil. That's on Neil Ferrier, I do believe. Also say hello to Catherine Meredith, who says, come on, Alex, it's race night. And also to Harry there in the YouTube chat, who's cheering on Alex. And I do believe that may be Alex Meredith. So I do apologise if I've missed any of you. And, well, it's not our intention. I think we said hello to everybody who's in the chat. And if you're currently tuning in and you're a little bit shy and you don't feel comfortable in saying hi, well, that's absolutely okay. But don't be shy. Feel free to say hi. We don't bite here at NXTGEN Racing. And I'm sure whichever chat you're in, the people that are in there with you will be supportive and willing to talk to you about the racing. We keep it clean and friendly here. But as we do look to Daniel Fritz making his way through turn number 1 through Paddock Hill Bend, racing from the other side of the world, I do believe, and based in what is Australia, unless I'm very much mistaken. It's the early hours of the morning for the Whiskey Runners Racing 31 driver, but whether it's the early hours or the evening right now, he's absolutely pushing on, and currently P26 in the Hyundai Elantra, and what is P12 in the Prime class as he heads up towards turn number 4. Now, what are we expecting from this qualifying session in terms of how our drivers will approach it, or alternatively, which cars could go strongest? Well, let's start off with approach. This is a circuit where you don't really want a tow or the dirty out of another car in front of you. The only place you want the slipstream is normally in the run down here towards Hawthorns via Pilgrim's Drop, and also the run onto the start-finish straight. With the straight's being so short around here, you don't really gain too much by being in the tow. At most, you may gain 2 to 3 tenths over the entirety of the lap. So you want clear air and you want open track, and with that, then you need to have full confidence in your car and your ability to be able to nail those apexes and use the full road width. And by staying clear of other cars, that way you guarantee yourself a clear track all the way on around. But if you do get it wrong and stay close to another car, then you've got to try and take evasive action on that, maybe a lap completely compromised. Now, as for the cars we're seeing out on the circuit, we do normally see a trend, which is the Hyundais are quite strong in qualifying, particularly the Elantra has been the one-lap pace car, but that's not to say the Veloster cannot deliver as well, as we are seeing the Neil Ferrier in the Veloster currently in P2 there with Joseph Doble, your pace setter up front. But with regards to the cars, we are expect the Honda Civic to go very strongly in qualifying as well, given the fact it is a handling-centric car. It's not the fastest on the straights, but the weakness with regards to its top-end speed will be mitigated somewhat given the short length of the straights around here, and therefore I think it could be for the likes of Joseph Doble. We could see a surprise pole position or see the Hondas really jump a good way up the grid. But we're not expecting any car to be weak around here. Arguably, could the Audi RS3 have a bit of difficulty, given the fact it is a little bit more of a car that's geared towards its higher end of the gear range, perhaps, but the Audi as well does have a lot of torque available to it, and that torque can really help it through the corners, include Druids Bend and also going through Surtees and Sterling's later on. So it's going to be fully open, we reckon, this qualifying, and it will really come down to the driver first and foremost, and whether, if they've got success balance, they can find a way to deal with it. But as we continue to see the time trickle on down, we are 8 minutes in already as we see a driver going off then. I believe that's Josh Millins having the Sim Racing Collective car getting it wrong, and there's contact with Joseph Doble, and when you go onto that grass, The car is just simply taken away from you. It's completely understandable why that's happened there. And indeed, if you've ever tuned in to Real World Motorsport at what is Brands Hatch, you will see that happen through Sheen up into Dingle. If a car goes onto the grass, it literally becomes the driver's a passenger and the car just continues on. But it was an unfortunate one for Millington and Joseph Doble being collected. Well, they're going to make the way to the pit lane. They'll get back out and circuit very shortly as we look here to Adam Delmont making his way across the timeline. And what can Delmont do this time around? Well, currently P19 on 33.679. Top 20 right now separated by 6 tenths, or just slightly over 6 1/4 of a tenth. So absolutely intense times here. And we can see the top 2 right now separated by only half a tenth between Joseph Doble and Neil Ferrier, with Wayne Douglas a further half a tenth behind. But as we continue to look at Adam Delmont making his way through turn number 3 at Graham Hill Bend, well, meanwhile, we look from here to some drivers who are starting to make their way onto a lap, and in particular Gavin Gardner as he comes on round in the Audi R3 for Next Gen Racing Pink, and he charges across the timeline, and we get on board with him for a flying lap of the Brands Hatch circuit. So making his way into turn at number 1 and trail braking from the 100 board into Paddock Hill Bend. 4th gear as he clatters his way over the apex curve, uses the runoff area there, and now up into Druids Bend. Onto the brakes here, braking at the 50 board, 3rd gear, a bit compromised there by the Aztec Racing 26 as it struggles to get the power down, and Garner having to back off in fact there. And that's the thing, when you get too close to a car in front around here, there's no real way to overtake without compromising your lap. For Gardner, this lap now will feel heavily compromised. What I suspect he will do is he'll run quite close to the back of the Aztec Racing machine, the 26 car there being of what is Gabriel Yilmaz, and towards the end of the lap he'll back off and try and find himself some space. But that is an on-board lap that has been aborted, and understandably so there as he tucks in behind. But as more and more of our drivers continue to make their way on around, we're including what is Wayne Douglas, I do believe, is heading through Sterling's at the moment. We will try and get a perspective from him. Garner there backing off with half the qualifying session complete, and Wayne Douglas making his way through Clark Curve and onto the start-finish straight. And as he does, well, we jump on board here with the Douglas Motorsport Next Gen Racing driver as he heads in towards a new lap. So 9 of Veloster he goes in towards the braking zone for Paddock Hill Bend, braking after the number 100 board there, and coming into 4th gear, rolling down the hill and hooking the car from the exit curve there to point it straight out towards Druids, braking at the 50 board and down to 1st gear. Very different gearboxes there between the Audi and the Veloster, and as he comes down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend, over to the right, use all the entry width there, but got to be careful not to put a wheel on the grass as he then pounds out turn number 3, using the runoff area, now heading up towards 30s at turn number 4. Here, braking as late as he can, trail braking in towards the left-hander, collects the apex curve and now powering out, using the plenty of the exit curve as well, and it's a run down towards Hawthorns. Now being up speed, you can rest for a little bit and just let the car gradually breathe its way up the gearbox, but suddenly there's Hawthorns. It's on the right-hander, uphill, and now brake at the 50 board, trail brakes down to 4th gear, and then just gradually feed the throttle in, and then back to full throttle as it clears apex, now heads up into Westfield Bend. Here it's fast flying, it's a whole series of right-handers. Westfield he goes, using the runoff space there to widen the corner, down through Sheen, here towards Dingle he goes, and into the right-hander at turn number 7. Car, they're going slow on what is the inside to the outside of Sterling's. Douglas managing to go around as they come through turn number 8 there, and now powering on down the final stretch up towards the right-hander at turn number 9. Getting himself set, looking to the left-hand side and braking at the 50 board, trailing to the apex in 3rd gear, and feed the throttle in, understeer creeps in as the car bounces off the corner, and as he makes way through, keeps the car over to the right here for a short run to the timing line. And what's it going to be for Douglas this time around? Well, it was a relatively smooth lap, albeit compromised slightly towards the end. 33.041, and for Wayne Douglas that's not going to be an improvement compared to his previous 33.01, but still coming close, and I think feeling as though there's a bit more time out there. But meanwhile, current provisional pole sitter overall and in pro class, it's William Chadwick from Altus Esports. He makes his way through turn number 3 at Graham Hill Bend and decides to back off and let some other cars go on through. And with the Honda Civic Type R drive, I think feeling very comfortable right now with that pole lap. It's 2.5 tenths faster than what anybody else has been able to achieve. But again, success could be temporary here, and he may be on pole, but it's that run to turn number 1 which could prove to be decisive. But as we look from Chadwick to your current provisional pole sitter in the prime class, it's none other than CXR Project Black's Phil McDougall as he comes through Westfield, tailing very closely there one of the Doble Sim Racing Honda Civics, and I do believe that may have been Isaac Doble backing off, albeit we can't quite confirm that given the fact they run an identical livery to Isaac and Joseph. But as he makes his way through turn number 8, McDougall there coming roaring on through, absolutely charging the car on around, and as he makes his way in towards turn number 9, we're coming through the right-hander here. I don't think it's going to be improved this time around, but he's got a long pack of cars in front of him, so he's trying to find somebody to give him a bit of a tow. He's definitely found that, but is it going to come across with regards to having some track space ahead of him? As he makes his way to the timeline there, bouncing the car over to the outside for turn number 1, Natural Racing 9, as he comes on down the hill, and as he exits turn 1, McDougall goes on to another lap. But meanwhile, looking from him to a bit further down the field to Willis Jones Smaskers out, as we see the Hyundai Elantra driver Aztec Racing making his way up towards Hawthorns very shortly, and we're currently in P38 out of our 39 drivers in this qualifying session. And he and Gabriel Yilmaz still trying to find a bit more time out there, albeit currently at 7/10 off of Garside, and Yilmaz a further half a second off by comparison. So it does look as though it's going to come more towards the race compared to qualifying for these guys, unless they've just not had a good lap so far, and therefore they've got a lot of pace at their fingertips. You never know. Sometimes it does take you a lot of time in qualifying to get the lap down, but as we do see Smaskers Gal heading in towards turn number 8. Meanwhile, behind we have the coming form of what is the Veloster, I do believe, of Garside. The full send racing machine going around the outside there, and Will Smaskers Gal just backing off, as that is Philip Garside heading into the final corner and taking a bit more grass than perhaps he'd like to coming out of Sterling's. But as he makes his way towards the timeline, what's Garside going to do this time around? He's currently sat on where's a 35.80. Does he find a way to move from P37? No, he does not by looks of things. In fact, I think that was an invalidated lap. But as he makes his way onwards towards Druids Bend once again, we look from him to a bit further up the field to Marco Benatelli. And as we see Benatelli making the way out of Hawthorns and in towards Westfield Bend, well, we do have there Chadwick just going slowly on the inside, letting everybody go. And meanwhile, Benatelli enjoying the flow of the car right now, enjoying the rhythm as he comes charging on through and looking comfortable. Heading up the hill through the right-hander there, Dingledale. Oh, goodness me, he gets the tyre onto the grass. The rear left just creeping onto the grass. And you see immediately the car going into a state of oversteer and having to snap the car back into the right direction. Good car control there from Benatelli, but that will be a compromised lap. There's no question about that as he makes his way through the right-hander of turn number 9. But as he does, we look from Benatelli, who comes towards the end of the lap very shortly, to the drivers just in front of him in the form of Costa Chasta Constantino, as we do see here the driver making his way up through turn number 1 in the Honda Velocity. He's changed car, because he's changed car midway through the season beyond the point where car changes were allowed, he will be taking a massive points penalty going into round number 7. I think he feels as though it's worth it to try and get some points towards the end of the season in the Prime class, and the Veloster, an interesting thing. It's a jack of all trades, master of none we've typically seen in the NXTCC, and we've seen that thus far in season 3, and the fact the Velosters have definitely been pushing their way and going very fast and hard in races, particularly at Long Beach. We saw the Veloster do very well indeed. But looking from Chats Constantino to the drivers further up the field, we look back inside the top 10, in particular Sam Smith, and well, the iRacing Esports driver here, and perhaps the unluckiest member of the iRacing Esports team. They've all had some difficult luck this season, but Smith in particular has always found himself when he's been in a winning position, and in terms of winning, in terms of perhaps being with a chance of being on the podium overall, alternatively just being inside the top 10, there's always been something to knock the wind out of his sails, to use the saying. But right now P4, 4/10 off of the time set by Chadwick, but looking very good there for a second row start, albeit Mikey Doble with 200ths off. Could we see Smith take his second row start, his first one for this season from qualifying, as he makes his way up the hill? Well, that'll be his target, as we do say hello there in the YouTube chat to JJ Wolf VOD, who says let's go Costa, and cheering on Chats Constantino from the YouTube chat there. But as we do look from Smith to Reese Watt, current provisional pole sitter in the Prime class P6, and will the JW Motorsport driver really enjoying the Audi? It was interesting to see him take the Audi going into this season. We perhaps thought he would have gone with the Honda Civic Type R, which really went well with him in season 2, albeit missing out on the championship in the Prime class versus Matthew Addy. But since moving to the Audi, it has been a noticeable upgrade on Watt's performances over the course of the season, albeit there's been bumps and scrapes. steps like there has been for most of our drivers in this field, but what seems to be really acclimatised into the Audi, and with that the pace is continuing to flow, and right now the best part of which is only 200ths faster than Michael Lees, but still he'll take that, and the championship leader of Lees will need to try and find a way to assert what's time within the time remaining, but there's not much left. And speaking of Michael Lees, well, here he is coming on through with the final corner, and he'll be going on to what will be his penultimate qualifying lap very shortly, and he's gone personal best in subsector 1. That's the run through Paddock Hill Bend, but beyond that I don't think Lees has found any other time out there. So for the Elantra driver from Next Gen Racing, it is all going to come down to minor margins, but to put it in perspective, when we do have the top 26 separated by less than a whole second on this qualifying order, and well, there's two and a half tenths between the top two, that goes to show you how close it is and how staggering Chadwick's pole lap is by comparison with the field, albeit keeping in mind, of course, William Chadwick coming into the season tonight with no success ballast on the car, and therefore for Chadwick, if he carries on the performances over the first couple of rounds he does take part in, then he'll very quickly find himself picking up that 56.1 kilograms of success ballast, and then very quickly being pushed back into the pack. That's the intention of success ballast, as we have 1.5 minutes left on this qualifying session. And meanwhile, a jump for Jamie Dory. Dory moves up to what is their P16 overall on a 33.323. Cheverton improves in P23 to a 33.473. So a couple more improvements going through from our drivers. But as we look to Benjamin McCluskey, currently in P6 in the prime class, P18 overall. Well, Gavin Garner moves up to P13 on a 33.182. So Garner making a late jump up the order, and can anybody else bring some surprises? We'll have to wait and see as more and more times continue to trickle in here, but some drivers who right now will feel that they're up against it, in particular Adam Delmont, P27 with the Honda Civic Type R driver. This is not a commonplace. We normally see him. We normally do see him qualify inside the top 20, even when he's running a lot of success ballast in the car, but Delmont and Brands Hatch does not seem to be a winning combination right now, and with Alan McCain just ahead of him by one spot, both McCain and Delmont really struggling in this session. Meanwhile, in the prime class, in terms of surprises there, well, perhaps one of the big surprises is in the fact that we do have what is Melvin Eckerson making it into P19 right now, P7 in class, and definitely finding himself further and further up the field each and every qualifying session. But it is a significant jump, normally just on the trail end of the top 10, but today embed himself fully within it. But 15 seconds now, and it will be when we see the checker flag in this qualifying session. Our drivers are permitted to finish their current lap, but beyond that, no more laps allowed. And as we do see Eckerson heading on through the penultimate corner here, it's Gavin Garner tucked in behind and trying to pick up a bit of a distant toe. Audi following Audi as they head in towards turn at number 9 of 9 and coming on through. Well, meanwhile, Benjamin McCluskey goes P12 as he crosses the timeline of 33.171. Can Eckerson find a bit more time? He has gone personal best in some subsectors as Delmont goes P24. Eckerson crosses the line. Meanwhile, Gavin Garner behind him jumps up to P4. Well, where was that going to come from? Well, Garner has found a lot of time out on a 33.007. And meanwhile, can there be any reaction from any other drivers now as we do look back to the start-finish line here? Matthew Addy in particular coming on through. He'll be the next driver across the line, and the circuit's gone quite relatively quick. But as he heads across the line, what's it going to be for Addy here? Can he find a way to improve? He's currently P28, and no, he improves, but it's not enough to move up places to 33.694. Meanwhile, elsewhere out there, we have also got what is, I do believe, heading towards the timeline very shortly. In fact, a long way away from the timeline right now is one at Matthew Cheverton, as Joseph Doble's just crossed the line, stays P8 there, and we've also just had Josh Millington cross the line. Well, what about Cheverton as he heads up towards the left-hander of Sterling's Bend? He's going to be one of the very last across the timelines. Nick Clemens crosses it as I look out my contact booth window. He's not improved whatsoever by looks of things, but Cheverton will be the next driver to head on through. Behind him is Jamie Dory, and will Cheverton find a way to move from P23, P10? I believe this will be his first top 10 in the prime class in qualifying this season, if this stays as it is, which will be an achievement for the Aztec Racing driver. And he does, in fact, he does improve. Cheverton moves up to P19, P7 in class, and the team are going to be absolutely ecstatic with that one, because it's their strongest qualifying session of the season thus far, at least for Cheverton that is. Addy's still heading on a round, but I believe Addy's session is already complete, so that is qualifying done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, it does mean it will be Will Chadwick on his debut who takes pole position overall in the pro class, and then in the prime class, P7 overall, it's Reese Watt and the Audi RS3 for JW Motorsport, who has absolutely delivered when it's mattered most, because the circuit here today is one that's all about track position and what could could definitely be onto a winning form over the first 2 races if he's able to hold on come the start-finish as they make the way underway. But we are only now about 30 to 40 seconds away from our drivers being taken to the pits, and as soon as I say that, they are done so, and now we make our way to the grid for our first race of the day, and this is how they line up. William Chadwick takes pole position for the first race of round 6 of season 3 of the NXTGEN, sponsored by Douglas Motorsport and hosted on iRacing, with Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport's Wayne Douglas line up alongside him P2. On the second row of the grid, it's Neil Ferrier for 4XR Ferrier Sim Racing, joined by Gavin Garner for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, and it's Sam J. Smith for iRace Esports, who's joined on the third row by Doble Sim Racing's Mikey Doble. Reese Watt takes your prime pole position for JW Motorsport, P7 on the grid on the fourth row, with Doble Sim Racing's Joseph Doble alongside him, and it's Josh Millington for the Sim Racing Collective, joined by Next Gen Racing Yo's Michael Lees, P10, completing your fifth row. On row 6 is the pair of Andrew Romy, Best of Rest for GRT Esport, and the Sim Racing Collective's Andrew Pike, followed up by the pairing of what is now, I do believe, P13 Benjamin McCluskey, alongside Marcello Reales on the 7th row, and then row number 8 goes to Phil McDougall and Marco Benatelli, with Alex Meredith and Jamie Dory on your 9th row. Top 20 round up on the 10th row by Matthew Cheverton and Melvin Erkison, with Mark Sykes and Isaac Doble on your 11th row, and it's John Higgins Jr. and Adam Dillon on row number 12, followed up by the pairing of what is behind them of Alan with Ian Manners and Luke Jones on row number 13, and there's Alan McCain and Matthew Addy on row 14, with the top 30 being completed on the 15th row by Paul Scott and Nick Clibbins. Matthew Jolly and Paolo Maniti on your 16th row, with Philip Garside and Daniel Fritz on the 17th row. Row 18 goes to Jonathan Collins and Jake Pitt, with Costa Chatscontinentinu and Gabriel Yimez on the 19th row, and then on your final row, last but not least, P39, is James Mansgale for Aztec Racing. But that is the grid complete, ladies and gentlemen. It is 39 cars here at Brands Hatch today, and as they all get set and ready to go racing, this man at the front of the field, for it's a standing start, will need to launch it well into turn number 1. It's William Chadwick from Altus Esports, but all the drives set, and now we are just awaiting the lights. One red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our first race of the day here at Brands Hatch as William Chadwick gets a good start. But meanwhile, look at Wayne Douglas tucking in to cover off Neil Ferrier. Ferrier looking on the inside, a big squeeze as they make the way into Paddock Hill Bend. Ferrier's not giving up, however, he's going all in as they charge the way up the hill. Douglas still on the outside. Side by side, they're going to Druids Bend as all the drivers now make the way into every braking zone. Ferrier forces the move and gets it done. Meanwhile, further behind, Sam Smith and Gavin Garner coming to blows there. Albeit I think Garner being pushed backwards, in fact, to what is there, Josh Millington behind, and Josh Millington having an absolutely storming start as meanwhile Ferrier goes off the road, rejoins and Douglas holds him at bay, but it does look as though this battle for P2 is constantly going up a notch. Meanwhile, further back down the order, we've got a car off in the distance. That's Paul Scott, who's taken a bit of a difficult line, but meanwhile Phil McDougall in contact there and being sent off the road to Marco Benatelli. McDougall rejoins on the run through the apex of turn number 4, but McDougall being first squeeze, it's 3-4 wide, and it looks like McDougall and Sykes have come together. It's all gone wrong with the CXR Project Black and Next Gen Racing drivers, but meanwhile looking from them to those who passed them, side by side going to Hawthorne's Bend, it's Adam Delman who just made his way past Luke Jones and trying to chase after Isaac Doe and Melvin Erkison, but as they make the way up through the right-hander, a turn at number 5 on through and now up towards what will there be Dingledale very shortly. A further move being entertained there by Luke Jones potentially, but he can't quite find it at the moment as Delman holds him at bay. Meanwhile, cars in front, that's Reese Watt off the road, and Watt's just going from good to bad to disastrous in the space of this opening lap as he gets the car stopped, but that is not a happy place to put the car. He gets it turned around in the end, but it's been a disaster for Reese Watt, but as he comes towards the end of his lap, meanwhile going on to lap number 2, it will be William Chadwick who comes across the timeline, and behind him Wayne Douglas being followed up by Sam Smith as they roar their way on through, but coming down through the right-hander, and meanwhile we have there what is, I do believe, Wayne Douglas P2 ahead of Sam Smith P3, Neil Ferrier P4, followed by Gavin Garnett P5, and that'll be your prime leader Josh Millington at P6, who has got behind him Michael Lees, his runner-up prime driver at the moment, and battling for position P7, then Joseph Doe, Andrew Rowan and Andrew Pike complete your top 10, best the rest Mikey Doble P11 losing 5 places overall at the start as he now comes on through and up towards turn number 4 for the second time, but as they roar the way up towards the left-hander where everybody now started to settle down into a rhythm, but we've had a lot of incidents on the open lap. We will try and get a look back at a good number of them very shortly. In particular, we need to understand what happened to Reese Watt at the start of the race because he fell down the order like a stone, I believe. may have been given an elbow wide or two, but as the racing settles down here, meanwhile, looking from the battle at the back to what is the front of this leading pack, Gavin Garnett still trying to fend off Josh Millington, and Millington really going for it, but Michael Lees also trying to get involved, as there's Joseph Doble, the two primes right now in amongst the pack of pros, very hungry pros at that, but the prime drivers holding their space, albeit Joseph Doble on the inside there, going for Dingle and gets the move done before Sterling's. Now Lees will have to go defensive versus Romy, who tries to try and come through, but cannot find the space in the end as they head up towards turn number 9 once again. And as they charge them down, well, Lee's there trying to come back at Joseph Doble, but Doble just simply cover him off on the inside into the right hand. Lee's will try and go all the way around the outside, side by side as they clear the corner. They give one another the space. Lee's getting his elbows out door to door here as they make the way up towards the timeline onto lap number 3 very shortly. And as they do head into the braking zone, well, Lee's is going to have to try and hold on, but I think Paddock Hill Ben's going to prove too much unless he can cut it back. Lock up for a drive further up the road. I believe that's a lock up for Sam Smith in P4, but Lee's still tucked in behind. In fact, we do have, I believe, what is a safety car deployed in front, and that's why they're all having to slam the brakes on, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't quite catch that call, but safety car has been deployed here on lap number 3 of 14 in the first race of the day, and I believe that is in response to a number of incidents that have occurred on the open laps, but particularly on lap number 2, which has triggered off the safety car. And we'll take a look back very shortly at some of those incidents, and we may be able to explain what exactly has happened. But with everything that has unfolded, it definitely has been a very interesting start to proceedings today, and well, now everything will settle down. But after 2 laps of racing, it is William Chadwick who leads, ahead of Wayne Douglas P2, and then Neil Ferrier P3, followed up by Sam Smith P4, Gavin Garner P5, and then it's your Pro-Am leader of Josh Millington of the Sim Racing Collective P6, ahead of Joseph Doble P7, Michael Lees, your second Pro-Am driver P8, Andrea Romy P9, Andrew Pike P10, and Mikey Doble Best the Rest P11. But as the field all starts to stack together in the run on through Hawthorns and up towards Westfield Bend, we take a look back at the race start, and in particular we try to understand what happened to Reece Watt of all of our drivers, as it has been a difficult day for the JW Motorsport driver. But as they all got underway, so in particular focusing on Michael Lees here, but look out for the JW Motorsport Audi in front of them as they got underway. Into the right hand they went, and as they did, well, we now look to Gavin Garner. Oh, goodness me, there was contact there between Millington and what was, I do believe, Reece Watt and also Mikey Doble, but Watt being elbowed wide, and then as a result of that, Reece Watt just being pushed further and further down the orders. We finally do find the car of Reece Watt, and well, at this point on the inside down into Graham Hill Bend. And for Reece Watt just having difficulty, and that difficulty being compounded. And meanwhile, Phil McDougall going wide there. But Reece Watt after this, side by side with Doble into turn number 4 and going through the left-hander. And at this point, Doble going on through to take the move. And later on, we did see Reece Watt have that moment coming through Dingle. We'll come to that shortly. But first, we do take a look at this battle still between what was Reece Watt and I believe that was Benjamin McCluskey trying to go around the outside. So Watt having to deal with the velocity trying to come on through. And still the pressure there, even more cars stacking up behind as they made the way into Westfield Bend. So for Reece Watt just losing more and more places as the racing continued. And well, we'll continue to watch this all the way to what happened through Dingledale. Coming down and up the hill, he went into turn number 7, side by side here, with the number 531 car. Fell off the curb slightly, and well, the NXTGEN racing machine being turned as a result of the contact and then going to the grass. And Reece Watt in return being made to turn around there with the subsequent follow-up contact between the two of them. So that explains the story for Reece Watt on the start of this race. But meanwhile, as we look back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, we are still behind the safety car for the time. And I believe the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. We've just been informed. So that does mean we will have a grand total is another 10 laps of racing to go when we got to lap number 5. We do apologise for the fact we said it was 15 laps of racing earlier, and in your schedules for this evening it would have said 15 laps. We are running 14 laps, at least in this first race of the day, and I believe that may have been a misprint with regards to the 15 laps. But as we do get set to go racing at once more, ladies and gentlemen, that was our main incident. That's all we've got time really to cut back to at the moment. And as our drivers get themselves all comfortably set to go racing once again, it's definitely been an intense start to proceedings here at Brands Hatch, as it always is, with the circuit being so narrow, and that's why it's on the calendar twice, the BTCC, with the Indy circuit playing host earlier on in the season, and then the full Grand Prix loop normally being at the season-ending crown jewel, if you will. But right now, for William Chadwick, as he just backs the field off, he gets ready to go racing. We are still technically under safety car conditions at the moment, as we do bring bringing up the dashboard there, and we'll wait to see when he does decide to go. But safety car has been released. In fact, it's in the pit lane already, so we are just waiting for Chadwick to push it to the green. And indeed he goes at the start of the last corner, so Chadwick doing the classic safety car restart there, and we are racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. Another 10 laps of racing to go here in race number 1 of the day, and Chadwick immediately nailing the restart as they all charge their way onwards towards turn number 1. But as all our drivers come roaring on through, we look a bit further back to Jamie Dory in number 13 car, trying to look around the outside of Marcello Reales. He can't quite find it in the battle for P12 as they come on down, but all of our drivers here have been caught out to a degree by the restart being done by Chadwick in the way he brought the field down to an absolutely gradual pace. But meanwhile, we've got a car off there, and that is Gavin Gardner, who's made his way to the wall on the exit of Druids Bend. It's gone very wrong for Gardner as he rejoins, and as he does, well, meanwhile, Clements goes round the outside. It's a wounded Audi being overtaken by a clean Audi. Meanwhile, back up in front of them, well, Dory defending here versus Willis Joseph Doble, but at the same time trying to find the move of Marcello Reales as they come out of left-hander at turn number 4, and up towards Hawthorns they go at 5, but as they do, well, the battle rages on here as they head on down the hill, and Joseph Doble absolutely oil the back of Jamie Dory like a bad rash as they come into the right-hander. They're coming up the hill right now. Meanwhile, Nick Clements still having to try and work his way past Gavin Gardner with maybe damage to Gardner's Audi, but it's not stopping it from putting up a battle. And further behind, we do have a bit of a battle between Gabriel Yilmaz and Jonathan Collins here in the lower portion of the field, battling for P24. It's Collins who holds the lead position. Yilmaz behind for Aztec Racing T2, and as they make the way on through Sheen and Dingledale, well, we do lose Yilmaz for a brief moment there. I believe it's just a small connectivity issue, but Luke Jones also caught up in this battle with Palomini in front of him, and Matthew Sheraton right at the back. So we've got battles all the way up and down the field wherever you look. Fantastic racing between all the drivers, and everybody pushing hard for their potential results here today as they head in towards the final quarter once again. But things will calm down for a brief moment here as they roll away for the final quarter. It's off track there from Yilmaz, and Yilmaz caught on the grass, and as he tries to rejoin, he'll find himself on the outside there, and he'll have to relinquish the positions to a good number of drivers. He brings the car back together, but loses where's a grand total of 4 places. Meanwhile, Melvin Erkison goes up the inside, and the Swede makes it 5 places as he heads up the hill towards Druids. Defends harder versus Yilmaz. Yilmaz looks to the inside, battle on the brakes, and the Honda can be very late on the brakes, but a bit of contact to the rear of Erkison's car. Erkison being sent straight on as they come down the hill, and well, it's going to be Melvin Erkison is pushed behind. But meanwhile, looking from them back up towards what is your top 10, Andrew Pike here in P8 with Mikey Doble behind them. Doble now seems to be finding a bit of rhythm as they make the way up towards the right-hander of Hawthorns Bend and coming on through and down towards Westfield very shortly. Well, could we see a potential exchange of places? We are definitely seeing Millington defending here versus Michael Lees. Lees on the inside as they come through the corner. Side by side, they make the way all the way down to here. It's very tentative. Do you go 2 wide and risk it all, or do you decide to only go 1 wide? Well, in the end, they go light in the stern, but meanwhile, behind them, you can see that Mikey Doble's lost out to Andrew Romy as they come on through, but Andrew Pike has been cleared by Doble as they come out the corner. Meanwhile, both Millington and Lees there being a little bit liberal with their use of track limits as they make the way out of turn 8, both pushing very hard. And Andrew Romy now trying to get all over the back of Lees and trying to stick his foot in for P6 in this battle as we jump on board with the Audi driver. Now as he comes on towards the start finish straight here, looking out towards the outside. Lees defending meanwhile as we continue to ride on board. You have to take our word, Lees is there on the right, but Romy trying to go all the way around. That's not the place for him to go as a lot of understeer creeps in, and Mikey Doble creeps up the inside, and as they make the way in towards turn number 2, onto the brakes here, and there's contact, and I believe that's Andrew Pike behind who's made contact with the inside rear of Andrew Romy's cars. We look back from the GRT eSport machine, and the Italian right now having to battle both front and behind all the way through as they make the way out of turn number 3 and up towards 4. You can see Marcello Reales, they're taking a little bit of peek to the inside. Pike covers it off as they roll their way through turn number 4. The long corner here, and that's Jamie Dory behind them, and then it's Joseph Doble with P12. So the battle to be inside the top 10 continue to quicken, but as they make the way onwards towards Pilgrim's Drop, the drivers staying as they are for now. Albeit Marcello Reales looking for a move here versus Pike. Pike simply holds the inside line and says, no, you don't. Reales, the Argentinian, says, yes, I do. He's going to try and force it round for BRGT, but then he can't quite do it. Pike covers him off on the inside, but Reales being made to look left, right and centre as he comes through the right-hander, and now up towards Dingledale he goes. But from them, meanwhile, we've got Mikey Doble on the inside of Leeds here coming through turn number 7, And as they come in towards 8, well, Mikey Doble gains another place overall. Michael Leeds, meanwhile, dropping place and losing side Josh Millington, who's further up the road in the prime lead. But as they head up towards turn number 9, now it's going to be Romy who looks around the outside of the Next Gen Racing yellow car. Can't quite find it, however, as they make the way on through and on to another lap very shortly. But Romy will have the cut back here, but in return, no way through as Leeds covers him off as they charge on towards what we lap number 8. But behind them, we can still also see Jamie Dory battling with Reles. And as they head to the braking zone here, Romy's going to really commit to this on the outside. But meanwhile, 3 wide on corner X here. And my goodness, Andrew Pike there saying, is that a 2-of-1 offer? Don't mind if I do, as he breaks his way into Druids Bend. Behind them, Jamie Dory still side by side with what's the combination of Reles and Joseph Doble. And as they come out of the corner, goes a bit wide there. Rejoins Marcelo Reles, gets the move done. Joseph Doble around the outside of Jamie Dory and also gains the place. Dory under pressure and Benjamin McCluskey now as his fellow Next Gen Racing driver stays close. But looking from then to a bit further behind, we've got a car up there in the rear of the picture. That's Mark Sykes off again, and it's gone very wrong for Mark Sykes for the second time today. As Mark Sykes, I believe, down in what is P36 and a lap down already, so that's going to only frustrate his day. But meanwhile, we look here to Alan McCain versus what is Isaac Doble. Isaac Doble on the left here picture, McCain on the right in the iRacing Esports Elantra. Meanwhile, Isaac Doble in the double sim racing Honda, and we have behind them Gavin Garner, who's also trying to get stuck in with the pair, but Garner can't seem to find a way in at the moment. Indeed, they're going to have to wait as they come through Westfield and down the drop they go. But from them to Garner, it is only what is 4 attempts covering the 3 drivers, and as they head in towards turn at number 8 very shortly, well, no move this time, but Phil McDougall takes a wheel to the grass. He's a lap down and trying to get himself back onto the lead lap as quickly as he possibly can. But Phil McDougall, I think it's going to be a game of very shortly letting other drivers go, as meanwhile Gavin Garner up the inside of Isaac Doble, and he will take P16 overall from the prime driver, does the pro, as they make the way on to next lap. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, we have had a change for the lead of this race. It's Wayne Douglas who's overtaken William Chadwick, and we'll try and understand how exactly that move was done very shortly. In fact, we have a replay. It happened on lap number 6, and here's how the move was made. So I believe Chadwick getting it wrong there at turn number 4 and drifted his way through the corner, having to catch the car after it oversteered under braking, and the Altus Esports drive dropping a P2, and Wayne Douglas now takes the lead as we return to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. But the question is, but how long will it be before we potentially see Chadwick come back with a move? Because the top 3 right now, Douglas, Chadwick and Smith, they've broken away from the rest of the field by the best part of 2.5 seconds. But the key thing is they make the way in towards Hawthorne's Bend, is that with Neil Ferrer gradually trying to approach this, there's an opportunity for Chadwick and Smith to try and make moves as they come down through Westfield once more. We look back from the rear of the Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport Veloster, piloted by Douglas in the 66, as he heads up the hill and in towards turn number 7. And you can see the difference in the body language here of the Honda versus the Veloster as they come into the corners. That Honda just able to get a bit more rotation in the corners, giving it ease the cornering beast by comparison with its peers. But in return, as soon as we start to make our way on the straights, the Veloster able to hold its own in the draft, remembering that these drivers, Douglas is running a small amount of success ballast in the car. Meanwhile, Chadwick's not running any, but Douglas still able to pull away with the gearing. As they head up towards what is now lap number 10, not many more are remaining. It is, of course, a challenge now where time trickles down, and Smith behind continue to try and find a way past Chadwick, whereas all 3 drivers head up towards Druids Bend. The gap to Neil Ferrer now 2.7 seconds. It's staying about the same, but as they roll the way off of the Druids Bend now, Chadwick ever so close, but can't find a way through, and Smith just waited in the wings for if it all kicks off. But from them, we do look back to Josh Millington, pro-am leader, and Mikey Doble following him through there. And then we look further back to Jamie Dory, who's all tucked in behind what is Joseph Doble as they come out to turn number 3. And meanwhile, further up the road, I believe Wayne Douglas has had a very similar instance to what happened to Chadwick on lap number 6, because Chadwick and Smith have both just jumped ahead of him at turn at number 4 from what I'm hearing in my ear. But it's not over yet as we look back to leaders here, and Chadwick defending versus Smith as they make the way through the right-hander of turn number 5. And now towards turn number 6 at Westfield, Douglas looks up the inside, and Smith being made to wait. Contact between the 2 of them, and Douglas not afraid to get his elbows out here, but it's going to cost them both. And I think now they're going to give Chadwick the opportunity to try and put this race to bed with the laps remaining as they come out of Dingle Dell and in towards Sterling's. But coming on down here, Douglas home to defend versus Smith ever more so as both drivers come on through. Smith tries to cut it back, gets a lovely run out the corner, but the problem is now Douglas will defend the inside like his life depends on it into turn number 9. Neil Ferry within 1.2 seconds seconds. This battling has cost them time already within the space of 4 corners. Neil Ferrier has halved the deficit, and Chadwick has already opened up the equal deficit that they've lost to Ferrier by comparison as they head on to one more lap now. And as they charge their way in towards turn number 2, onto the brakes they go. Douglas still defending him. Smith looking around the outside. Meanwhile, further back, we've got Michael Lees here battling with Andrew Romy. Romy trying to look for the move here versus the second place Prime driver. And as he cuts back in, goes to the cutback here, the Audi driver been made to wait. He can't hasten his way on through, but as they head up the hill, well, onto the brakes, Romy goes. Lees leaves the door open. Romy goes all in here, and he's going to get it done, surely, as Lees lets the move take place. I think they're deciding it's better not to fight it too hard, given the fact it's only going to cost them more and more time. But meanwhile, we look back to Benjamin McCluskey versus Adam Delmont, and with the 2 next-gen racing drivers here having a little bit of a scuffle for P13. Unlucky for some, but they both feel as though it brings them good luck in terms of the position on the grid for race number 2, and they're both fighting for it hard. But as they head out to turn number, which they're 4, and up towards 5 they go. Further down, let's not forget the fact we do have plenty of primes on the circuit as well. So many drivers here, but the Meredith and Lovato racing driver Alex Meredith tucked in behind Ian Manners as they make the way up towards turn number 5. And when this is the battle effective for its P7 in the prime class, with Manners heading the quartet, or Manners, Meredith, Scott and Jolly, and they're separated by 1 second as they make the way in towards Westfield. But the change here is they're all equal one another in terms of pace, therefore one of them's got to get it right in terms of making a move, or the other's got to make a mistake to open up an opportunity. But as they head through Dingledale and in towards Stirling's, will Manners using the full width of the circuit and trying to keep it all in mind. And Meredith looking up the inside there, trying to get Manners to react, to get him to make a mistake. As Scott having a smooth run out of turn number 8, it looks as though the Audi driver gets in closer and closer every corner turned, but they have not got long remaining as he tries to take a sneak peek on the inside into 9. But in return, that's only going to give Matthew Jolly an opportunity to get closer and closer as we jump on board with the Aztec Racing Team 2 driver from the United Kingdom. Now going on to with lap number 12 of 14, what can Jolly do in this situation where he's got the car that's the strongest on the brakes, the best through the corners arguably, whereas the 2 cars in front are a bit stronger with regards to acceleration but not strong on the brakes. But meanwhile, Meredith there looking up the inside, and it's going to be Manners who covers him off, and you can see there Meredith absolutely squirming all over the back of the JW Motorsport Honda as they break the way into Graham Hill Bend. But through the left-hander they go, and they all stay as they are for now, and Jolly with the prime popcorn seat view here of watch it all play out as Paul Scott looks up the inside of Meredith. Meredith leaves the door open as a result as they car through, but Meredith turns on in, cuts off the nose of Scott there and says, no you don't. Johnny here gets a great run off the corner, but is it going to be enough as he's made to take a little bit of grass there, trying to find his way on around, but everywhere he looks there's Paul Scott in his way as Scott's reacting to Meredith as they make the way in towards Hawthorne's Bend. Now to stay as they are, but they let Manners break away as a result of this. It's a great scrap for P8 in the prime class, and with P21 here, I think they all want that P7. They don't want this right now as they come through the right-hander and down towards Dingledale and Sheen they go. But from them we do have Reece Watt meanwhile trying to make a recovery in this race, looking up the inside Jonathan Collins for P13 in the prime class. And it's P26 overall as they come down through Westfield, and as they head up towards Dingledale now, Watt's going to commit to this. He's got his teammate Jones just behind, but Collins says no and just simply turns through and gets it done. But meanwhile from them we look back up to what is the top 10, or just outside the top 10 in fact, and this is the battle for best rest at P11, and Jamie Dory here defending hard versus Joseph Doble as they come through turn 1 and up the hill towards 2 they go. Druids Bend, and Doble swings from one way to the other. Meanwhile Delmont there also trying to get stuck into the mix and feedback get his nose on the inside, but thankfully he didn't, as I think there would have been contact with Doble. And as they come down the hill into Graham Hill Bend, well Delmont's going to try and help his teammate Dory out here by getting all over the back of Doble and making focus rearward. But Delmont now has the untantalising task of finding his way past the Doble Sim Racing driver, and well we do know that the Doble Sim Racing team absolutely stoic in defence, just as heroic on the attack. And as they head out to turn 4 headed towards 5, a flash of lights there for Jamie Dory, I think to try and distract the driver in front in the form of Michael Lees, but time continuing to impress here for Adam Delmont as he can't find a way on through. But from them we look back down the order to Melvin Eckerson, who's chasing after Matthew Cheverton in the run down Pilgrim's Drop and trying to look for the move around the outside. Here is the Swede and the Bright Esports machine. Can he find it? I don't think he can, as now Cheverton defending hard on the inside. Eckerson being cut across there, but it does look as though Cheverton just simply places the car in the right place at the right time. They stay as they are right now as they make the way up towards what is turn number 7 and coming in towards Dingledale, and Eckerson just not able to make the move. But meanwhile, looking from them, it's white flag. It's the final lap, and William Chadwick leads to Altus Esports by 2.5 seconds over Wayne Douglas. With the next gen racing with Douglas Motorsport Drive still being hotly pursued by Sam Smith and Neil Ferrier, albeit the pressure is now off for Douglas to an extent, with Smith having to look more rear guard rather than front facing action. And as the top four crashes its way down through Drifts in towards Graham Hill Bend, you've then got a way to go back to Josh Millington, your leading prime driver here, as he heads off the hill and in towards the braking zone for turn number 3. And the Sim Racing Collective driver on course to bring home his first win of the season as he heads in towards turn number 4 with Mikey Doble hot behind. Where it seems as though most of the battling inside the top 10 has calmed down in terms of immediate risks of an overtake, albeit I say that, and somebody's now going to try and send it most likely. That seems to be the commentator's curse in the NXTCC. But as we continue to watch here, Josh Millington holding a hold on for his first overall top 5 of the season as well. So 2 firsts here for him in race number 1 of Brands Hatch today. If things stay as they are, well, the battling definitely has taken a more dulcet tone for the time being, albeit as we look from them back up to what is Douglas versus Smith. Well, you get a good look at the trees there, and then they finally emerge at the tree line, and Douglas loses the rear of the car, and he just misses the barrier there. Can he get the car stopped? No, he can't, and it goes to the barrier eventually in the run into Sterling's Bend, but it's gone wrong for Wayne Douglas, what was looking to be a P2 guaranteed. But meanwhile, coming out the final corner on his debut, it's been tough, and he's had to fight hard for it, but William Chadwick will take his first win of the season, and the winning race 1 at Brands Hatch for Altus Esports ahead of Sam Smith P2. The iRacing Esports driver would deserve it run-up with Neil Ferrier P3 on his debut in the Pro class. Josh Millington takes his first prime win of the season at P4 overall as well, ahead of Mikey Doble P5, Andrew Pike P6, Andrea Romy P7 ahead of Marcelo Reles, and then it will be Michael Lees P2 in prime class, P9 overall ahead of Jamie Dory, who completes the top 10, and as Benjamin McCluskey comes on through, P13 for the prime driver, and 3rd place in the prime class for Next Gen Racing yellow driver. We've still got some further battles going on. In fact, I think most battles have now come to the checkered flag already, ladies and gentlemen. But as we do look at some drivers who've yet to finish their race, including what is P34 driver Philip Garside, who on his debut has had a difficult start to today for the Full Sem Racing outfit, but still 2 more races to come. He finishes P34 and a lap down, and behind him there, I do believe that is Daniel Fritz, who takes P29, and we are still waiting on James Masquez-Gal to finish his race, albeit he has got there what is, I do believe, in front of him, one of the Aztec Racing Machines, one of his teammates coming on through in the 26th. That's Yilmaz. They'll come across the line together with Yilmaz in P36. So Masquez-Gal will take P30, and that will be the majority of our field across line. And then Palamaniti will be your last finisher, P31 of 39 on the lead lap there for the GRT Esport driver. As he crosses the line there, the Italian having a difficult start to proceedings, involved in a major incident midway through at the early stage of the race. One absolute thriller. But as we look back to those making their way into the pit lane, William Chadwick started off his debut in the NXTCC in absolutely brilliant fashion. And Sam Smith as well, a massive mention too, in the fact his first podium overall of the season. And the iRacing Esports driver could not have picked a more difficult circuit to achieve it at. And Neil Ferrier making that pro podium and overall podium complete. Millington also parking up there, and as all our drivers head into the pit lane. Some other major mentions: Ian Manners on his debut for JW Motorsport, P20 overall, P7 in the prime class, with behind him there, I do believe, Alex Meredith finishing P8, and Ian Manners able to hold Meredith, Scott and Jolly at bay. Matthew Jolly getting his first prime top 10 of the season, P23 overall, and Daniel Fritz having a difficult day for Whiskey Runners Racing thus far, but could his fortunes turn around in the second race of the day? Well, we'll find out soon. But as he parks up, we make our way back to the scenic view, and let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And after our first 14-lap race here today at Brands Hatch, William Chadwick taking the overall win for Altus Esports by 3.1 seconds over Sam Smith for iRacing Esports. The podium being rounded out overall by Neil Ferrier for 4XR Ferrier Sim Racing. Close battle between Smith and Ferrier, and then Josh Millington not quite able to make it an overall podium, but the Sim Racing Collective driver delivering in the prime class and picking up his first class win of the season. Double Sim Racing's Mikey Doble, a P5 there, and he'll be absolutely pleased with that for the simple reason, with maximum success ballast, he's achieved a top 5, and that's some huge points on the board. And then Andrew Pike, the Sim Racing Collective drive, P6 there, not quite able to fight through to the top 5, but still a good performance from the Englishman. 3 seconds clear of Andrea Romy for GRT Esport, with Marcello Reles in the end fighting his way through to P8. The Argentine absolutely having a back and forth battle with the likes of Michael Lees and Jamie Dory, but the VRGT Racing team managing to outpace and outdo the Next Gen Racing Yellow and the Next Gen Racing Douglas Motorsport pair. Now Michael Lees at P9 there, and that means he's second place in the Pro-Am class. Congratulations to him on what has been another podium into his trophy collection. And then Jamie Dory round off the top 10 there with Best of S Joseph Doble at P11 for Doble Sim Racing. Adam Delman and Benjamin McCluskey, P12, P13. Special mentions to Benjamin McCluskey for Next Gen Racing Yellow for rounded off the Pro-Am podium of what was Millington, Lease and McCluskey. And then Alan McCain and Gavin Garner completed your top 15. Wayne Douglas, P16, with that late mistake at the end, costing him extremely dear. The Next Gen Racing Douglas Motorsport drive on course to what would have been a great and his best performance of the season, P2, but it all went wrong coming out of Dingle Dell, and perhaps he'll be able to put it back together in the second race of the day with Isaac Doble there, P17 for Doble Sim Racing, ahead of Nick Clemens, P18. And as we continue our way down through the finishing positions, Matthew Addy and Ian Maz completed your top 20, and with their finishing positions completed the top 6 of the Pro-Am class. A better performance from Matthew Addy, it must be said, in this race, given the run of form in the opening 5 rounds. And the Next Gen Racing Yellow drive, we're hoping that will continue as he tries to defend his Pro-Am Championship crown. And behind Ian Maz, who ran off the top 20, Alex Meredith, P21, ahead of Paul Scott, with Matthew Jolly and Matthew Sheraton both accruing top 10 performances for the Aztec Racing team in the Pro-Am class. And then Melvin Exon, P25. Reese Watt, P26, with a disastrous open lap, costing him extremely dear at JW Motorsport, but ahead of his teammate Luke Jones, P27, and then Jonathan Collins at P28. And as we come towards the end of our drives, we finished on the lead lap. Daniel Fritz, P29, having a difficult start to proceedings, but looking forward to race number 2, no doubt about it. And James Smags Gazgow, I should say, who completed your top 30 with Paolo Maniti, P31. He was your last lead lap finisher, and then finishing a lap down, Phil McDougall, Jake Pitt, Philip Garside, Marco Benatelli, Gabriel Yilmaz, and then finishing multiple laps down, and I do believe will be classified as did not finish, John Higgins Jr., Mark Sykes, and then also was P39 there, Costa Chatscontinentino for Biff Hornet and Epic Collective with his retirement. But that was race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, but don't go anywhere, we've got plenty more racing to come. Race number 2 is only moments away. We'll be back in approximately 5 to 7 minutes time for the build-up to race number 2. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race number 2 of 3 here at the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit in England. And what a thrilling race number 1 we had, in the fact that we saw battles aplenty up and down the field. We also had some major incidents, albeit we couldn't cover them all with the brief period that we had the safety car for, but some drivers really falling out of sorts as a result of those incidents. And perhaps the biggest victim of all, Rhys Watt in the Pro-Am class. The JW Motorsport Audi driver, after a phenomenal pole positioning class, being pushed out of pole and completely down the order in the space of 1 lap. And well, he'll be looking to bounce back in this second race of the day. And well, speaking of Rhys Watt, there he is as he makes his way on through Paddock Hill Bend. Conditions have changed slightly. It's a little bit brighter here now in the county of Kent, and as time has moved on through the day, Rhys Watt will definitely now feel as though it's time to move on from the first race of the day and focus his energy on race number 2. Now, as we make our way into race number 2, what changes here compared to the first race of the day? Well, the key thing is it all now becomes about trying to make sure you're inside the top 23 if you're not already, because we do have that partial reverse grid draw that occurs after this race. Ideally, you want to be 13th or higher in the grid, or I should say lower in the grid, depending on your perspective how you do numbers. But we say higher because of the fact the highest spot on the field is the win in P1, and P13 is below it technically. But the idea is that you want to be P13 or higher, because that way you're guaranteed to be on the reverse grid, and therefore you will be somewhere inside the top 13 for the purposes of the final race of the day. That's if the number 13 is drawn, but you can gamble it all and finish P23, and if we happen to draw 23rd from what is the lottery bowl at NXTGEN Racing, then you'll be starting on pole from P23, and we have seen that number 23 come out the bowl once this season. We've seen the number 22, if my memory serves me correctly, come out twice this season so far. Indeed, we've had some incredibly high numbers throughout the first 5 rounds, and could we potentially see, and I'm not trying to predict fate here, ladies and gents, and I promise you we're not rigging it in the commentary booth right now. They haven't loaded some of these balls with cement or anything. We could see some lower numbers over the course of this second half of the season. Well, we'll have to wait and see. But coming on to a positive start to the day for one driver, Sam Smith, bringing home his first podium of the season overall. A brilliant drive from the iRacing esports driver, and fended off a lot of pressure from Neil Ferrier, and also the pressure of chasing down Wayne Douglas, and Wayne Douglas making a mistake at this corner at turn number 7 on the final lap, which cost him extremely dear and put him out to P2. So iRacing esports have definitely got a lot to cheer about already, and they'll be looking to cheer even more after this race. That'll be their target. But as we speak about Wayne Douglas, here is the NXTGEN Racing Douglas Motorsport driver as he comes into the pits, and he'll be thinking about recovering in this race and charging back from just towards the bottom end of the top 20. But he parks up and gets set. For the Gar side, it also parks up there, and I believe it might be practicing a launch there as he gets underway, and indeed he does there, just practicing his race starts for the purposes of taking off from the grid. And the Sava drivers do this towards the end of the warm-up sessions, but we're less now than 30 seconds away from having our drivers being given the call to make their way back into the pit lane, and then the gridding process will get underway. But whilst we are waiting, we do say hello there to Handsome Stu in the YouTube chat, who says game on, and I do believe there, Handsome Stu, talking a little bit about Andrew Pike, not Andrew Pike's, in fact it was Andrew Pike's who was, I doubt myself and then correct myself again. I have a habit of doing that with regards to move up the inside into turn 1 on 2 dryers, and saying it reminded me of Hamilton at Silverstone last year. Indeed, I think the words of through goes Hamilton echoing in the minds of many in a brilliant piece of motorsporting media history. But as we now get set, ladies and gentlemen, it is checker flag out on this practice session, and it's time for our drivers to make their way to the grid for race number 2. So as they line up on the grid, this is how race number 2 shall start. It'll be William Chadwick who takes pole position once again, this time ahead of Sam Smith, who joins him on the front row P2. Behind them, it's the pair of Neil Ferrier and Josh Millington, your leading prime there of Millington starting P4, with row 3 going to the pair of Mikey Doble and Andrew Pike. Row 4 goes to Andrea Romy and Marcello Reles, with the top team being rounded up by the prime driver Michael Lease and the pro of Jamie Dory on row 5, and then Joseph Doble and Adam Delman line up together on row number 6. Behind them on row 7, Benjamin McCluskey and Alan McCain, with Gavin Garnett and Wayne Douglas on row number 8. And then row 9, Isaac Doe and Nick Clemmons, with the top 10 being completed, with the top 20, I should say, or the top 10 rows being completed by Matthew Addy and Ian Manners. But then behind them on row number 11, Alex Meredith and Paul Scott, followed up by the pair of Matthew Jolly and Matthew Cheverton. And on row 13, Melvin Erkison and Rhys Watt, with Luke Jones and Jonathan Collins on row 14. Daniel Fritz and James Mascasgow on row 15 completed the top 30. Palamaniti and Philbert Dew on 16th row. But that's the grid, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to cut to the lights. It's time for racing. 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go once again for the second time today. And William Chadwick getting a good start. Sam Smith trying to look for the move around the outside. He gets a great launch off the line. Cars off already. Nick Clemens to the back of the picture there, taking a bit of a rally cross line as they made the way up front. As all the drivers out charge up the hill towards Druids Bend. All in quick line of stern formation here. Albeit some trying to look for moves nice and early. That's Andrea Robbie in the middle of the road, having to try and fend off Jamie Dory. And also at Joseph Doble in equal measure as they stay train their way down the hill. A lot of battles further on down there. Looks like most of the field savely making its way on through, albeit we have had a couple of drives step wide, but everybody has survived the opening 3 corners, albeit I say that, and I'm made to cast my words. We just have 3 cars go off in camera shot, and that's James Vasquez-Gal, also Benjamin McCluskey, and one other. We're not quite sure. There's a car off there in the form of, I believe that's McCluskey, in fact, who's gone off at 4, but we'll have to try and update you on who exactly's had what go wrong where very shortly. But meanwhile, we look here at the 2 JW Motorsport cars, and at the front of the field, we've got Andrew Pike trying to put the pressure on William. In fact, we're having the pressure put on him by Sam Smith. William Chadwick's already running away with this. He's done a dusting and said, right, I'm off. And we've got a safety car being deployed at the end of this lap, ladies and gentlemen, due to incidents in the opening couple of corners. But our drivers are allowed to battle all the way to the end of this lap, and it's going to be Smith trying to hold the inside versus Pike, who looks around the outside. The Sim Racing Collective drivers not had enough yet, as there's been carnage further back. Car off the road there, and that's Marcello Relis and Jamie Dory involved in the incident. Car on around as well as Josh Millington getting it wrong. Michael Leach takes evasive action, and as they all make the way out towards turn of 9, Millington tries to get the car to turn. He's going to have to wait, though, for the field to come on through. And meanwhile, Andrew Pike and Sam Smith battling side by side. The safety car has been deployed at the end of the start-finish straight, and neither one of them wants to back out. Well, someone's going to slam the brakes on, and it will be Smith who holds the P2 position come the end of the first lap. And my goodness, well, that's an absolutely staggering opening lap, and what started off as a clean run for the first 3 corners ended in disaster for about 5 or 6 drivers. But after 1 lap, it's Chadwick ahead of Smith, followed by Pike at P3, Ferry at P4, and then Doble ahead of Romy, Joseph Doble P7, and the first Doble being Mikey Doble, then P8 Michael Leach, your leading prime driver, ahead of Adam Delmont and Wayne Douglas, completing your top 10. At Bester SP11, Gavin Gardner, and then your next prime driver is Ian Manners in P12, second place in class at the moment. I think very happy of how this race has started. But as our drivers get themselves all set now behind the safety car, it will be at least 1 lap, if not a couple, as we do have a number of drivers in the pit lane being repaired, and we are going to give those drivers, we typically do give the drivers who are being repaired at least 1 or 2 laps grace in terms of being able to get the car fixed and try to catch up to the field. So we are going to have a bit of a breather. But let's take a look back at what happened at the start of the race. It was a very clean race for the most part of the first 3 corners, but for one driver it went a bit wrong, and Nick Clemens off the start. Now you're looking in particular for the iRacing Esports Elantra here towards the back of the picture, when the Audi in fact, and Clemens just being knocked wide. Now we look to the onboard of Clemens as we come back, and what exactly happened? He got up to speed and contact with his teammate, and that would have been with Alan McCain. And with the two of them coming together and Clemens being forced off the road before he could even make 200 metres, and with your teammate as well, the worst way to start off proceedings. But we are going to stay with this now all the way through. So Clemens fell back, but some brilliant racing up the hill here. Daniel Fritz side by side with the Aztec racing machines as they came on through. So coming out of turn number 2, a couple of drives went a bit right, but nothing too scary. And I think this is where it all started to go wrong as they all came down. In fact, there was contact between, I think, Andrea Talasco and, was it James Smansky-Gal he collected? No, Smansky-Gal was ahead up the road, so that would have been the car of, well, we're not quite sure whose Aztec racing machine it was, but Talasco definitely caught up. I think it was Gabriel Yilmaz, in fact. We'll try and confirm that. Yes, it was Yilmaz who got caught up in that incident, and we try and take a look back at what happened between them as we look to the race start once again. And as all the drivers got underway, so this was from further back in the field as they made the way up, and Yilmaz here having a relatively good start, in fact, coming out the final corner, side by side with Garside, and Garside falling off the circuit at some point by looks of things. They all made the way up towards Druids Bend, and as they did, Garside fell back behind into the braking zone. Matt Garside got ahead. We should correct ourselves. They were confusing his car with the car across the Costa Transcontinentalo, and then US coming down the hill, takes a bit of grass, car gets unsettled, and Talasco just in the wrong place at the wrong time and being collected by the Aztec racing machine. But then there was a bit of an incident as well for what was, I do believe, McCluskey, who went off at turn number 4. And what exactly happened to Benjamin McCluskey, I hear you ask? Will we take a further look at what happened to him as we now get the replay of McCluskey having to go wrong at the left-hander and contact there Wayne Douglas by the looks of things, and McCluskey being pushed wide there. Now, was there malice involved, or was McCluskey trying to turn him? We can't tell you that, but we can tell you that Daniel Fritz had a bit of a moment there. And oh, goodness me, for Fritz, well, that followed on very quickly, and safety car will be in at the end of its current lap, so we will get back to live pictures very shortly. But we just focus here on Daniel Fritz for a brief moment after what was a very good start for Fritz, and then it all went wrong in the space of one corner. Contact there with the Elantra on the inside the GRT machine, and well, Fritz been bounced around, and so was what was, I do believe, Garside. But we must return to your live pictures now, ladies and gentlemen, for the safety car will be in shortly, and well, we will still have a grand total of 11 laps of racing. But as we all get set ready to go, we say hello there to Sailboat 58, who says, regret missing past streams. This commentation sounds amazing. Well, thank you for that, Sailboat. We're very happy to have you tuned in this evening. And we also say hello to William Chadwick there in the YouTube chat, who says, always when I have a gap. Well, he's had a bit of an idle mode to pop a quick word in the YouTube chat, but that's the way it goes. Of course, he backs the field up now as he makes his way on through the final corner. Safety car is still deployed, and then up towards turn number 9. And well, the field here will follow him, but when will he go? He went on the run into the final corner last time. Will he go earlier? Will he go later? Will he go to the same place? Surely he's not going to go to the same place. Everyone will be aware that he's going to do this. But as they make their way through, in fact, he takes his time, and Sam Smith literally hugging the rear of him and saying, come on, and then he goes. Well, Sam Smith being caught out twice there as Chadwick gets up to speed, and we are racing once again, ladies and gentlemen. We go on to lap number 4, and as they head up towards turn number 1, Chadwick makes it 2 strong, restarts out of 2. Meanwhile, Neil Ferrier looking around the outside of Pike immediately into Paddock Hill Bend. But as they come up the hill down towards Druids, it's not over yet. The Scotsman trying to find a way to force the move, but behind Mikey Doble also getting his nose tucked in. And Mikey Doble here, if he takes another top 5, he'll be absolutely seen to the bank with points. Ferrier off the road there, and well, Doble's going to look around the outside to Graham Hill Bend, but it's going to be more of a cutback as they head up towards turn number 4. And as they head on towards the next braking zone, Joseph Doble also getting involved, trying to look for a way into the mix. Well, I think here Andrea Romy keeping at bay. The Audi driver from GRT Esports doing a solid job from P6 at the moment as they head up towards Hawthorne's Bend. But whilst the battles are playing outside the top 10, meanwhile, further down the field, we've got Matthew Jolly trying to look for a move of Melvin Erkison. We'll try and bring us Ferry there, flashing his lights versus Doble, trying to distract. But here is the battle between Jolly and Erkison. And Matthew Jolly right now trying to go for his best performance of the season. He's P6 in Pro-Am, P17 overall. If he finishes there, it'll be his best. But he wants a top 5, and good on the man for going for it. You can see the opportunity. And Erkison not having the best of times right now in terms of relative pace as they head up the hill in towards Dingledale. But behind them, more drives afoot with John Higgins Jr. trying to fight his way through the field. The Sim Racing Collective Pro driver falling astray. Meanwhile, car off there into the barrier, and it's going to be a nasty knock to the wall for Paolo Maniti, who does rejoin. But the right side suspension on that car will be severely wounded, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be a journey to the pit lane very shortly, because the GRT Esports machine surely will have its wheels out of alignment. But as they make their way through the corner, well, there you can see Meredith turns in, and Maniti being turned into the pit lane as a result, as the Italian now heads on through. But definitely a difficult moment there for the number 72 driver, and it's just not come his way. Meanwhile, further battling towards the back end of the field, this is the battle for what is their P34 or P20, the Pro-Am class between Spanskasgal, who's leading the trio. Sykes, who looks up the inside, takes the place. Spanskasgal goes wide, and Jamie Dory tries to come on through. And behind them, they do have Andrea Talasco, who's also trying to get into the mix, and Talasco goes all in. Spanskasgal, they're still given the space as they come down the hill in towards Graham Hill Bend. I think now it will be all about Spanskasgal just defending hard as they come out to the corner. Talasco trying to cut back. It's not over yet. Talasco thinks he's got the overspeed here, but Alantra no slouch in the acceleration stakes. But Talasco on the inside, side by side of the braking, and with the VRGT racing team Audi here being made to work incredibly hard for this, as we've got further things in the front of the field. We will catch up to the front very shortly, but drag race between these two all the way towards Hawthorne's bed. But who is going to back out? Talasco missing race number 1, and therefore join us as a race number 2 today. Talasco around the outside and gets the move done versus Vasquez Gal. Great racing between the pair, but from them we do look to a bit further up the road. Car off, and that is, I do believe, Nick Clemens is taking an adventure to the grass, but not to the trees, as they make the way through turn number 7 up towards 8 now. So Clemens drops down to what is their P29 overall, P60 Pro class. Matthew Jolly still hold on to P25, and we'll only months ago we're talking about the fact that Matthew Jolly on course for his best performance of the season, but off track has set it further down, as now he does have Marcelo Arella's trying to go around his outside. Arella's going all for the move here, the two Hondas battling the way up towards turn number 1. And as they head towards the braking zone here, with Jolly on the left of your picture, Arella's on the right. It's the Prime versus the Pro, heading on to the brakes here, and behind them McCluskey and Meredith still going side by side as well. Meredith looks to move a bit of contact with McCluskey giving the space to join the circuit as they make the way on towards turn number 2, onto the brakes, but the Meredith and Lovato racing, try to lose out on the braking, and McCluskey feeling much more confident with that outside line through Druid. He'll put him onto the inside of Graham Hill Bend. This is not over. Great racing between the pair right now, and in the end Meredith will have to back off, because otherwise he'll find himself taken to the grass. But in return, as they head up towards turn number 4, outside all the way around, and all the Prime drivers absolutely loving the battling here as they come on through it, and Meredith and McCluskey still side by side as they come out of turn number 4 and up towards 5 they go. And well, we are aware of the fact there's a bit of battle inside the top 10. We will cut to that very shortly, for I gather, but Meredith right here still defending versus McCluskey. They're causing a huge gap to appear in front of them, but when they're racing like this, I don't think they mind it too much. Side by side through Hawthorne's and in towards the next braking zone, and one of them's going to have to back out, and in the end Meredith does, as up the inside of him goes, what is there, Benatelli, and Benatelli can't quite find the move. But as they head up towards turn number 7, there's further contact with Benatelli and Clemens coming together, and Meredith being clipped there by the wayward car of what is Clemens, and also up the road goes Daniel Fritz, and well, everybody getting unsettled, and it's a disaster for Meredith and also Fritz as they've been collected. But meanwhile, we look back towards the front of the field as we head towards the halfway point of this race, and we can see inside the top 10, Joseph Doble in P8 still keeping Wayne Douglas honest, but Wayne Douglas making a lot of places since the start of this race. In fact, Wayne Douglas gaining 9 places overall and 1 in pro class. And the question being asked there by Sailboat is, what do the colours next to the drivers' names that stand for? Well, you've guessed correctly there, Sailboat. Pros are indicated by green colours, purple pinks are the indicators of Pro-Ams. And as our drivers make their way through, there's both an overall and a Pro-Am Drivers' Championship to be contended by drivers here. But as they head up towards turn number 4, Joseph Doble still holding on versus Delwyn and Cheverton, but I think we've got a bit of a battle growing behind there as Garrett Gardner takes a brief walk to the wild side of the outside of turn number 4, and as he heads up towards Hawthorne's there, he's going to Michael Lees looking around. Well, Gardner's not going to make this easy for where's the third place Brian driver as they come out and up towards turn number 6, onto the brakes here. Garrett Gardner's got a lot of damage to the rear of that Audi. He's had a nasty shunt at some point. We haven't seen it on camera, but definitely that Audi is not looking as flat on the rear as it should. But Alan McCain now stays close to him, and he'll be picking up a little bit more of that dirty air as a result of McCain. But as they head up towards Sterling's bed, meanwhile further back, John Higgins Jr. trying to pick his way past what is there, Luke Jones, as Reese Watt looking around the outside, Isaac Doble on the inside, and as they power the way on out, we jump on board with Isaac Doble side by side into the braking zone for what will be a clock curve. And onto clear ways, and well there, Watt covers it off nicely. Doble tries to cut it back, but a little bit of a wobble. He's also got Paul Scott trying to latch onto the back. Scott can't find a way through, but meanwhile Isaac Doble may take 2 wheels to the grass on the inside towards the wall, battling side by side under braking they go. It's Paddock Hill Bend. It's a good move from Isaac Doble. Watt gives him the space, but now it's going to be Audi Talk versus Honda Power up the hill, and the Audi absolutely ferocious in its appetite to ascend. But Doble on the inside line most critically here. Paul Scott gives him a little bit of nudge on the rear. Contact between Doble and Watt. Watt falls to the grass, comes back onto the circuit to cover the move off still as they make the way through Graham Hill Bend. Paul Scott makes it 3 wide and corner exit, but Isaac Doble uses all the runoff area to his advantage, and as they head in towards turn number 4, well, now it's going to be Paul Scott on the inside of Reese Watt, and Reese Watt trying to make headway, and in the end big compromise with Marcello Reales gets into the mix, gives Paul Scott a knock on the back and says, yep, you can do it, I'll give you a boost. And as they head out to turn number 4 and in towards 5, well, it's still Watt versus Scott as they head in towards Hawthorne's Bend. It's going to be Watt on on the inside this time. The left of the two Audis and the JW Motorsport colours, and coming out to the right-hander. Well, I think it will now be Watt's position to lose as Scott goes wide, and meanwhile Marcello Reles looking for the move and return. I think Paul Scott not happy. He feels like he's been pushed wide, and that'll go to the stewards if so. But as we look from them up towards the front of the field, meanwhile still further battling for P3, the final spot on the overall podium. And this is Andrew Pike versus Neil Ferrier, with Sam Smith getting into P2 and just running away with proceedings, and William Chadwick doing the same, effective, a 1 second gap. Well, now we have what is the battle for P3, separating 4 drivers by only a second. This is going to be Pike defending on the inside as he comes through Paddock Hill Bend on lap number 9. Ferrier right behind him, Mikey Doble there, and also the Audi. We've got all 4 different drivetrains all running together here. This is exactly what touring cars all about, and Ferrier goes up the inside, Pike being given the elbow, Doble follows him through, but meanwhile Andrew Romy now trying to come around the outside down into Granville Bend. Can't quite find him, but Ferrier's gained the position. Will he be able to hold on to it? That'll be the challenge as they head in towards the braking zone at 430s. Well, Ferrier feels though he's got this start. He puts on the racing line. Doble there right with a little tap to the rear of the car, and as they power their way out to turn number 4 and up towards 5, will still all 4 drivers here absolutely inseparable. And Mikey Doble right now as we jump on board with the number 88 driver for Doble Sim Racing, staying close, but can he pounce? I don't think so here, but he will have the momentum coming out of Hawthorns and up towards Westfield Bend. But it's a very short run to Westfield on the Derek Minter straight, and therefore he's not going to have the easiest opportunity. I think the next one for Doble will be in the run through Stirling's as they head up the hill through 6 into 7. Ferrier there very close to the grass on edge. He's got to be careful of that as the Ferrier Sim Racing driver. And as they come out of turn number 8, well, Doble gets the better run, but still wills to the grass. It's going to cost him a little bit of momentum. But still Pike and Romy now 4 tenths behind, so therefore Doble feels like he's a bit safe in this battle for the final spot of the podium as they come on through the final corner. Doble gets a much better exit, and Ferrier does not cover it off in time, so it will be Doble on the inside here as they go on to lap number 10 of 14, and as they head in towards Paddock Hill Bend, where the Elantra goes all in on the brakes here. Meanwhile the Veloster of Ferrier decides to just back it off and tuck in, and Mikey Doble takes P3. Now can he hold on to this? He's got a lot of weight in that car, which will cost him on the straights, but to be fair, if anybody can stick his foot in it and make sure to become an absolutely obstinate wall, it will be Mikey Doble as they come on down. But into left-hander they go and up towards what is turn number 4. And meanwhile, as this battle continues to rage on just outside the top 10, we have the battle for P12 between Michael Lees, who's leading in this group, trying to bring Gavin Garner, who's the Audi, just slightly out of camera shot there from P11 in. But meanwhile, Lees defending very hard, and you can understand why, because Michael Lees right now trying to hold on to what is their P2 in the Prime class. And meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, in a minute we've got some news to tell you with regards to the lead of the Prime class, but we'll come on to that very shortly. As meanwhile McCain looking around the outside, it's Elantra and Elantra here, the iRacing Esports driver looking around the outside, can't quite find it as he now tucks in, but Lees just parks the car in apex and a nasty shunt to the rear of Lees's car from McCain. But understanding, I think McCain was hoping that Lees would be getting a bit more of a hurry up as they come down through turn number 6, through Dingledale they go, and as they head upwards and through into Stirling's very shortly. Well, the bit of news to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, as this battle continues to push on, is that right now here's your Prime leader, and Matthew Shepperton from Aztec Racing in the Honda Civic Type R 390. Well, he's on course to pick up not only his best race of the season, but also his first win of the season in class and his first top 10 with that. All he needs to do is keep this together and not make any mistakes. He has got the best part of what is 6 seconds between himself and Lees, and well, in fact 3 seconds we should say as we get our maths correct, but Shepperton in a very strong position. But meanwhile, looking for them back to where's Adam Delman looking up the inside of him. You can see Delman looking for the move here. I think Shepperton will just let this go, and he won't fight it too hard for the simple reason there's a big win at stake, but he's going to fight it back. Shepperton does get the boxing gloves out, and as they make their way through turn number 3, well, Delman has got a barrel in his hands, as meanwhile Michael Lees has also got a barrel in his hands there as he has the car on the inside of Granville Bend. And meanwhile behind Alan McCain looking for a move, but McCain's got a lot of damage to the bodywork of that Elantra, particularly around the front left from the driver's perspective. I think that's where he's had the knock versus the back of Lees' car, making the way on the Derek Minter straight on the previous lap. So these two taking shades out of one another in terms of lap time and car bodywork, and who is going to come out on top this time around is Melvin Eckerson behind is in P3 in the Prime class right now. Would love to place off Elise as a minimum, but it does look as though here these three are holding one another back from further places up the road. They can see there was Elise going defensive once again, and McCain here looking to cut it back as he comes off the corner. In fact, Elise overdoes it this time, and now it's going to be McCain on the inside as they make the way up the hill. Well, he's not going to give up, but McCain's going to stick it in to win as they make the way on through. Elise to the grass down. Eckerson comes on through, and Michael Lees now rejoins them as to bring the car back together. But meanwhile, behind them, Matthew Addy tries to go around the outside, and for the first time this season, Matthew Addy could be on course for a podium in the Prime class. Defending champion struggled all season long, and as they head through turn number 9, where it's going to be Jones who's up the inside there, and Michael Lees is being knocked about like a piñata right now as they make the way onwards towards lap number 12. Lees, with one mistake, finds himself falling more and more into the clutches of all his Prime class peers as they all rocket the way into Paddock Hill Bend. Lees on the outside, it's 3 wide on quarter entry, but it's 2 wide on quarter exit, and Matthew Addy stays clear. Meanwhile, Luke Jones there defending on the inside, onto the brakes he goes, and as they come through Druid, who's going to back out of this? I don't think Lees wants to back out at all. I think he said, I've had enough, and you can understand why, because Lees is probably fed up and losing places. But meanwhile, John Higgins Jr. says, okay, it's my turn, goes up the inside of Jones, going from Graham Hill Bend, and puts a stop in all the battling between the Prime drivers for the meantime. As they head up the hill, and meanwhile Isaac Doble without the inside Jones. Meanwhile, Phil McDougall turns there, and I think there was a bit of contact from Marcello Reles to the back of McDougall's car as he tries to bring it back together. Benjamin McCluskey taking evasive action onto the grass there and loses out as a result, but definitely a nasty knock between the two. And as they make the way up towards Hawthorns, well, McDougall not too pleased, flashing his lights. You can understand why after a difficult race number 1. Now feeding race number 2 is coming back to haunt him, but meanwhile looking from them back to the battle for P6 between Wayne Douglas, Andrea Romy and Joseph Doble. This is P6 overall, and as they head up towards Woody's turn at number 9 for the 12th time of asking under race conditions, well, Romy here definitely feeling as though everything is coming together right now, albeit I do wonder whether Joseph Doble will have other aspirations as they head towards the end of this race. But charging across the timeline, and will everybody just settling into a rhythm now. 2 laps still remaining as they head down through turn of 1 and up towards 2. Speaking of that, we look back to the battle for P3. Well, Mikey Doble got ahead of Neil Ferrier a few laps ago, but now Neil Ferrier is the one who's hunting rather than being the hunted. And as they head down the hill into the braking zone here for Graham Hill Bend, 3/10 is the gap, but will he be able to find a way to keep Ferrier behind? Remembering, of course, the car has 56 kilograms of success ballast, and you can tell that in the fact that if we did not have that weight, I suspect Doble may have made the breakaway. But as they head out of the left-hander of 4, things stay as they are. Further down the order, we still got Matthew Shepperton fighting for P9 overall with Adam Delman, but surely somebody's got to get on the radio to Shepperton and tell him you don't need to fight for this, just take the Prime win. But I think Shepperton's got the bit between his teeth here as they make the way in towards Hawthorne's Bend. He can understand why. He wants the top 10 and he wants to win. He wants his cake and wants to eat it. And as they make the way up towards Westfield right now, only one more lap after this one, and Matthew Shepperton will be doing the Aztec Racing team an absolutely huge amount of pride today as he heads up the hill. But meanwhile, from them we look back to Andrea Talasco, who's having started from the very back of the field in P40, now chasing after Mark Sykes and Paul Scott. And as they come through Westfield, he's got 2 more places to pick off, so they're being an outside opportunity of being in that reverse grid, with P23 being in the hands of Paul Scott. But as they head up towards turn number 8, meanwhile that's Phil McDougall's been involved in an instant as he rejoins. Well, that's an unfortunate one for there for the CXR Project Black driver, and we'll not quite get a replay of that in the moment as we are in the final lap. But what we can do is focus on the battles that are continuing to unfold, and Adam Delman here on the inside versus Shepperton, and Shepperton now is going to be the 3 wide as they head towards Druids Bend, and on the inside there, Gardner decides to back out, making it fully 3 wide. Let's Delman take the lead, and Shepperton holds the inside line, and Shepperton's still fighting for P10 overall. He wants the top 10 just as much as he wants the Prime win, and with Alan McCain further back by 3 seconds, and then Melvin Eckerson. Well, right now I think for Shepperton he won't mind this whatsoever, but as they head in towards turn number 4, meanwhile Isaac Doble here still trying to pick his way into P4 in the Prime class behind Matthew Addy, with Michael Lees getting ahead of this group. He's bounced back, but meanwhile Addy having to defend for his life here to try and pick up a top 5 finish at some major points, but heading onwards towards Pilgrim's Drop now. Not long to go for Addy. He's just got to keep his head down here and keep the car in the right place. He can make that car as wide as he needs to, given the fact it's a relatively narrow road surface. But from them, meanwhile, we do have a bit of a battle here heading in towards Sterling's Bend, and that is Andrew Romy off the road, and Joseph Doble will take the place. But meanwhile, to take his place at the top step of the podium very shortly as he makes about the final corner. We do apologise, we just lost all the data and reappears. It is going to be William Chadwick who makes it 2 out of 2 for Altus Esports. He takes the win overall ahead of Sam Smith, P2. Double podium for the iRacing Esports driver, and Mikey Doble rounds off your overall podium there for Double Sim Racing ahead of Andrew Pike and Neil Ferrier. Wayne Douglas P6, Joe Stowe and Andrew Romy. And as Adam Delman comes out of the final corner, well, P9's a good one for him, but for Matthew Cheverton, it's his first prime win of the season and its first top 10 overall as well. The Aztec Racing driver absolutely delivering ahead of Gavin Garner P11, Alan McCain P12, and then Melvin Erkison runner-up in the Prime class of Prix Esports ahead of Matthew Addy, who held on in the end to take the final step of the Prime podium. Isaac Doble P15 ahead of Michael Lees. And as more drivers come on through, we've still got a couple to finish their races, including Philip Garside here, who's had a slightly better race compared to race number 1. The Full Send Racing driver coming on through very shortly to take P28, as we've got a car limp into the line there, and that is, I believe, Luke Jones, who's just taken the checker flag for P27. Garside P28 ahead of Clemens P29. Gabriel Yilmaz comes on through for P30. And as he comes to the line, the Aztec Racing driver having a difficult race, but still holding off Reese Watts. And then your last finisher will be Palamaniti. This is the last finisher on the lead lap. We should clarify, we have had some retirements and drivers who finished the lap down, but Palamaniti, P32 out of 40 drivers, as the GRT Esport driver having a bit of a knockabout over the race. And as he makes his way to the timing line, well, for the Italian, it has been a second race to forget, but still one more still to come. But as he heads on to his cool-down lap, meanwhile we look to the front of the field, and will William Chadwick absolutely monstrous after what was a straightforward start, just broke away. Sam Smith kept him honest all the way through with regards to lap time, but still Chadwick making it 2 out of 2, and Sam Smith making it his second podium in a row. A great day for the iRace Esports team, particularly for him, and Mikey Doble making it another top 5, but this time on the podium. The Double Sim Racing driver will be ecstatic with that one, but perhaps the biggest name of this race, Matthew Cheverton, picking up his first class win, we should say, and also a top 10 overall of the season for Aztec Racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's head to those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. Subject to those stewards' inquiries, of course, we see William Chadwick taking the win for Altus Esports by 3.5 seconds ahead of Sam J. Smith P2. The iRace Esports driver, they're making a double podium, and I believe his first 2 podiums of the season, with Mikey Doble rounding off the top 3 for Double Sim Racing. Andrew Pike P4, the Sim Racing Collective drive, battling hard and finding a way to step ahead of Neil Ferrier come at the checker flag, with the 4XR Ferrier Sim Racing driver finishing off the overall top 5. Then Wayne Douglas for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport charging through the field from what was P16 to P6. A great recovery drive there for the 66 driver, ahead of Joseph Doble for Double Sim Racing. Then Andrew Romy for GRT Esport, holding off Adam Delman for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport, who in turn had to battle his way past Matthew Cheverton, who round off your top 10. And with that, your Pro-Am winner for Aztec Racing. 2 tenths behind him, Gavin Garner, P11, best of the rest for NXTGEN Racing with Douglas Motorsport. And then Alan McCain, P12, ahead of Melvin Erkison, the Prix Esports driver, battling his way past Matthew Addy and holding on to P2 in the Prime class. And Matthew Addy, P14 for NXTGEN Racing Yellow, rounding off your Pro-Am podium of Cheverton, Erkison, and Addy. Isaac Doble at P15 for Double Sim Racing, ahead of Michael Lees, with the NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver finding it a difficult challenge to battle his way into what was the podium spots of the Prime class, and just missing out on what was the top 5 of the Primes as well, but holding off Jamie Doria and Benjamin McCluskey, and then completing your top 20, Marcelo Reles and John Higgins Jr. P21, Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing Blue, holding off teammate Mark Sykes to checker flag, when Andrea Talasco had started at P14, moving to P23 for the RGT Racing Team, and Phil McDougall with those unfortunate incidents, the CXR Project Black driver finishing P24 and outside the potential reversal positions, with Matthew Jolly P25 ahead of Jake Pitt, Luke Jones, Philip Garside, Nick Clemens and Gabriel Yuez completing your top 30, and then Reese Watt and Palamaniti, our last 2 finishers on the lead lap, P31 and P32, with Ian Manners a lap down, James Vasquez-Gal 2 laps down, and then the retirees, albeit will be classified, will be Costa Chatsconstantino, P35 there as he completed over half the race distance, but will be classified as a DNF, Daniel Fritz, Jonathan Collins, Josh Millington, Alex Meredith and Marco Benatelli. So that's how our 40 drivers got on in the second race of the day. But we have one more race to come, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see here on the schedule, race number 3 is coming up shortly. But before we go to race number 3, there is just time to cut to the commentary booth for the one and only reverse grid draw. And well, as we do cut to the booth right now, and good evening to you all from the booth. As we can see in front of me, here is the Next Gen Racing Lottery Bowl, as we always have. The numbers 6 through to 12 are in the bowl, and we will be very shortly closing our eyes, shuffling the bowl, and pulling out 2 balls. And whichever numbers we pull out, we add them together to give you the grand number, which will be our reversal position. So without further ado, let's do this. So that's the shuffle, and now we'll take our first ball out. And our first number is number 10, so it's going to be a relatively high grid by the looks of things. We'll continue the trend of high numbers this season, but what about our second number? Give it another shuffle, and then a draw. And our second number is a 7, so we've got actually quite a light reverse grid, 10 and 7 going together to make it 17, which means that Jamie Dory finds himself taking reverse grid pole for the final race of the day. And just to repeat that again, it's a P17 top 17 reverse grid, and we'll be back in approximately 5 to 7 minutes time, ladies and gentlemen, for the build up to race number 3. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to round race 3 of round 6, and it's our third and final race of the day. 14 more laps separate our drives from glory here for the final time today at Brands Hatch's Grand Prix circuit. But with the fact we've had a double winner in the overall category in the form of William Chadwick in races 1 and 2, and we've seen variable winners in the Prime class in our first 2 races of the day. Will we see Chadwick make it 3 wins out of 3, albeit he's going to have to come from P17 to do so? And will we see a third name in the Prime class take to the top step after Matthew Cheverton's win in race number 2 and his first win as Prime in this season thus far? Well, all that needs to be unfolded, and in time we will find out. But as our drivers do get set and ready to go racing, we'd just like to take a brief moment to say thank you for all of you tuning in. Indeed, it's great to see so many of you getting involved in the respective chats, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, or alternatively Twitch. And we say hello to a good number more of you, including Homper Sim Racing in the YouTube chat, also to Humphrey Band in the YouTube chat. It says the algorithm suggested this, but the commentary has kept me here. Well, we're very happy to have you with us, Humphrey. It's great to have you tune in, and glad the YouTube algorithm has worked out. It does seem to work out every so often. We also say hello there in the YouTube chat to Jamie Dory, as a good number of drivers, of course, do tune in to the reverse grid live draw, because they love to see it live, and the good old frying about of a bit of banter in the YouTube chat with regards to it being rigged. But I can assure you it is anything but that. But as we get set now and time trickling on down, 2.5 minutes till we go to the grid, we also just have a questionnaire in the Twitch chat from Sailboat58 asking what do the colours. In fact, we asked to answer the question earlier about what do the colours against the drivers' names mean in terms of the Pro and Prime classification. Green for Pro, meanwhile pink, purple for Pro-Am. But also, why is it certain drivers have blue names against them? And it's normally when they've fallen a lap down relative to the leader, or they are close to being a lap down, we do see drivers' names turn blue. And if we do see some of their names jump down the order, correctly surmised there by Sailboat, they normally have had to be towed to the pit lane. So hopefully that does clarify everything for those of you tuning at home. If you do have any questions, and always feel free to ask questions, because that way we can make your experience ever more enjoyable. But right now, Luke Jones really getting stuck into the racing in race number 2. The JW Motorsport driver having a fun race, but finding himself battling with his teammate Reeswap for a good portion of it, and will Reeswap meanwhile at the other end of the tail in terms of a race one that should have gone his way, but the open lap completely undoing all the hard work that he delivered in the qualifying session to take prime pole. And since then it has been a recovery drive, and with the top 17 inversion, he's not going to be able to capitalise on it. He's going to have to fight his way through to take that potential Pro-Am win. But it'll be interesting to see how the shake-up of the field with the top 17 inversion works out, because for Jamie Dory, it's a huge opportunity to try and score some major points to strike back at the likes of Andrew Pike and Mikey Doble in the championship. But other drivers as well who find themselves well within that, well, we do of course have Matthew Cheverton, the Pro-Am winner, but also the likes of Michael Lees, and that could give them the ability to yield another win in class. But as our drivers all get comfortably set, we also see Alex Meredith here from Meredith and Bartow Racing having a difficult first 2 races of the day. But then he will have an option one more time to try and deliver. And as we see there, Catherine Meredith cheering him on ever so. Indeed, the number 44 driver here. He may be young, but he's got a maturity that belies the years of a much older driver. And we look forward to seeing how the Hyundai Elantra driver gets on in this final race. And he always goes well in the third race today. We've typically seen that he's able to find a way to get under the fingernails of other drivers and find a way on through. But can he make it work here at Brands Hatch, with the circuit's tendency to be really difficult to overtake, and we have seen that in our first 2 races of the day. Well, all that and more is about to be found out. It's time, ladies and gents, for our drivers to make their way into the pit lane, and then we'll be heading to the grid for race number 3. So as they make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the final race of the day. It is Jamie Dory who takes pole position for reverse grid pole, with Michael Lees alongside in P2. It's the Pro ahead of the Pro-Am. Row number 2 goes Isaac Doe and Matthew Addy, the 2 Pro-Am drivers, with row 3 consisting of Melvin Eckerson and Alan McCain. And then we have Gavin Garner and Matthew Cheverton on row 4, with Adam Delman and Andrea Rummy completing your top 10. Row number 6 goes to Joseph Doble and Wayne Douglas, followed up by the pairing of Neil Ferrier and Andrew Pike. And then Mikey Doble and Sam Smith on your 8th row, with the 9th row going to the pair of William Chadwick and Benjamin McCluskey. Top 20 completed on the 10th row by Marcello Reles and John Higgins Jr., with Paul Scott and Mark Sykes on row number 11, and Andrea Talasco and Phil McDougall on row number 12. And on row 13, we have Matthew Jolly and Jake Pitt, followed up by Luke Jones and Philip Garside, and the top 30 being rounded up on the 15th row by Nick Clements and Gabriel Yilmaz. Reese Watt and Palamaniti will line up on your 16th row, with Ian Maz and James Mascazgale behind, but we've got to go lower, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us to go racing. 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for our final race of the day. 14 laps get underway, and Jamie Dory gets a reasonable start, but Michael Lees immediately trying to look for the move on the inside here. He wants to get early ground versus the likes of Isaac Doble company, but as they make the way on through and up the hill, they charge. Well, meanwhile, Isaac Doble defending hard versus Matthew Addy under braking into Drury's Bend. Now, which of the two are going to come out on top here? Isaac Doble getting squared up behind Michael Lees, but Addy goes overly deep on cold tyres. It only goes one way as they make the way down the hill, but there's a car in contact, and that's Andrew Romy, who's made his way back onto the circuit, albeit hopefully not to disaster. Oh goodness me, it's gone wrong there for Neil Ferrier, and I believe with him that may be Andrew Pike, who's taken a bit of a rallycross line, and as they make the way in towards Surtees Bend, this is only going to get even more terse as they head on through. 3 wide, and Mikey Doble is off there, and Mikey Doble being sent aside after 2 top 5 finishes. Well, now it's going to make it very difficult in the final race of the day. We've got a car missing his bumper in the form of Sam Smith there, battling with Neil Ferrer as they make the way out towards Hawthorne's corner, but going through the right-hander. It's definitely been a dramatic start. Further down the order, more battling than plenty, and Matthew Johnny keeping Nick Clements at bay on the back of Paul Scott, but going through turn number 5 and up towards 6. All the drivers now started to settle down, or at least it looks that way, but I wonder if it's going to be that way in reality, as Ian Manners also trying to pick his way past Nick Clements. As they head up the hill in towards what is there, the Stingle and Dell corner. Coming through it's Ian Manners here, and Will Phil McDougall going a bit wide. Car further wide there, and that is, I believe, Jake Pitt getting it wrong. McDougall on the inside there versus Clements will defend the position of a P24 so far. But as they head towards the end of the opening lap, meanwhile, onto lap number 2 comes Jamie Doria after 1 lap of racing. No safety cars so far, and he holds a 1 second lead over Leeds P2. Matthew Addy P3 being hotly contested by McCain and Doble P5, with Isaac Doble there ahead of Gavin Gardner P6 Gardner, and Matthew Shepardson P7, but hold that thought for a second as we've got a 3-way bow into Drury's Bend, becoming a 2-way now as they make the way through the right-hander. It's Gardner on the inside of Isaac Doble. He moves up to P5 for now, but Doble will try and come back off the circuit. Does go Matthew Shepardson making a lot of ground early on in this race, to be fair to the prime driver, and he wants more podiums. He's had the taste of one, he wants another one, and as they head in towards turn number 4, where it's going to be Gardner ahead of Doble in that battle for P5, but then Matthew Addy gets it wrong and drops a long way down the order, and Matthew Addy onto the grass and towards the barrier on the exit of Surtees corner. So it's a dramatic end to what was a good, comfortable run for Matthew Addy up there. And as they make the way in towards Hawthorne's Bend, well, now it's going to be a mix-up of the order once again as they all power the way through turn number 5 and through the GP loop. We're charging down to the round towards Westfield. We've got further cars off. That's Cheverton taking a wide line, and meanwhile at the inside it goes Joseph Doble and William Chadwick. So Chadwick already up 9 places since the start of this race with P17 on the grid. Chadwick avoiding most of the instance of the carnage around him and keeping his head on the straight and narrow. And as they roar the way through Dingledale and into Stirling's, now his next start will be Joseph Doble as they break the way through turn number 8 and head up towards 9. But meanwhile further back down the order, Andrea Talasco taking a wide line there at Dingledale, and as he heads onto the inside of Stirling's, Paul Scott trying to go around the outside. The 2 Audi drivers here battling for what is P8 in the Prime class, P21 overall as they head on to the brakes. It's going to be Scott who holds the position right now, with Matthew Jolly trying to get to the mix of Phil McDougall behind him as they all power the way on through. So these drivers are all getting nip and tuck with one another, and we jump aboard here with Phil McDougall as he looks at the move versus Jolly. Now they're going to go around the outside here. It's Honda on Honda as they roll the way through the drop. Now coming up towards Druids very shortly, and as they do, well, McDougall all over the back of Jolly, and the Aztec Racing driver leaves the door open. McDougall tries to force the door open further, but Jolly outbrakes him there, and the two together tap to the rear of the car, and McDougall very eager to get a move with Alex Meredith all over the back of him, all but you can't see Meredith, but let's reassure you he's right behind. And as they head out to turn 3 and up towards 4, well, right now for McDougall, he's just got to wait his turn and look for a better run out of Surtees onto the run to Hawthorne's, but as he goes overly deep there, a bit of understeer creeping into the car, and Meredith staying with him as they power their way up the gearboxes once again, charging up towards Hawthorne's Bend now. Meredith there 2 tenths behind, but can he get into the fight, or will he have to wait? I suspect he's going to have to wait for this battle between Jolly and McDougall to take its next stage, but as they come through the right-handed car, if that's Mark Sykes taking a bit of grass there as he rejoins in what is P19 up the road, P6 in the Prime class, but meanwhile it's going to be Meredith versus Jolly. Meredith on the inside. As they come up through Sheed into Dingledale, Meredith gains one. He looks for a second versus Badougal, but I think they're deciding not to be greedy. And as they head in towards Stirling's Bend, Alex Meredith getting the move done versus Matthew Jolly in a very tight section of the circuit, and now onwards towards turn number 9. But as they head on through, meanwhile, we've got a car off, and that is Alan McCain. For iRacing Esports points in the wrong direction, gets himself up to speed, coming into what is there the start-finish straight, and it's all gone wrong for the iRacing Esports driver. But meanwhile, from them to the front of the field, we've got Andrew Robbie here having to fend off Matthew Cheverton, and Cheverton again battling for P9 in what is there the overall category, trying to hold on to P3 in the Pro class, albeit Robbie in the Pro class leads for only fighting for overall position. But as they made the way in towards turn number 3, I think at this point Robbie's going to be thinking, who on earth is this guy? I've not seen him before with me on circuit, but right now he's battling hard. As I head up towards turn number 4, we say hello to John Meredith there, who's wishing on and cheering on the work of his son Alex Meredith. And meanwhile, we do continue to look at the battle just outside the top 10 of Melvin Erkison in P11, with Marcello Rellis, Sam Smith and John Higgins Jr. all stacked up behind. Erkison is a pro-am who's trying to hunt down Matthew Sheraton for the final spot on the pro-am podium, but he's got the whole plethora of pros all concertinaing in behind, and therefore the pressure is growing behind him and not going away. But as we jump aboard here, with the number 5 from the TSRC, or the Sim Racing Collective team, of John Higgins Jr. looking to try and get himself into the top 10 here today. Melvin Erkison off the road, and Erkison there rejoining, but it almost goes very, very wrong into the path of what have been the likes of Wayne Douglas and Andrew Pike. But as they all come back together, Melvin Erkison does rejoin, but he rejoins down in what is, I do believe, P33. In fact, he's had to be towed to the pitch. So that's the result of him being towed, but a disastrous moment there. Meanwhile, further back, we've got plenty of battling here side by side into the final corners. Cars are plenty getting it wrong there, as that was Paul Scott and I believe was Matthew Addy getting ahead of Scott. But Phil McDougall, the third time today in 3 races, it's all gone wrong for the 6R Project Black driver. He just cannot get a break in this season, and the NXTGEN Season 3 has proven to be a whole load of bad luck for the 83 driver as he brings himself back together. We're not quite sure what set off that incident, but we can tell you is that we'll have a replay of it coming up very shortly. In fact, here it is. Was they made their way out the corner, a bit of a moment there, and in fact I think that Alex Meredith and Phil McDougall coming together, the two of them upset one another, and as they came on through, everybody else avoiding the contact. We've only seen the midpoint and the tail end of it. Mark Sykes also involved in that incident, but definitely not a flattering camera angle for any of the members there involved in that one. I think they may get called to the stewards room after the race. But meanwhile, as we look back to live pictures and we look back to that battle for P7, this is Isaac Doble, currently second in the Pro class as well, and he has got Andrea Romy and Matthew Cheverton behind. Cheverton's the danger man for Doble, who's looking to try and make it another move. And as they head up the hill and in towards what is turn number 7 here, well, everybody making it on through safety through Dingledale this time, but I think everybody at the moment more conscious of the fact they want to get to the end of this race before they really start battling one another hard, albeit one driver who's really making a lot of ground at the moment. He's just gone through your camera shot. Is this man from Altus Esports, so William Chadwick, as meanwhile Michael Lees and Adam Delmont there having a bit of a moment, I believe. Driver off the road, and who just got bumped off the road by looks of things. We'll try and understand that very shortly. I think that was Joseph Doble who was given a bit of a knock off the road. The pro driver then a bit of contact with Michael Lees, albeit we only caught a brief glimpse of that, so we're not going to read too much into it. We may have called that one wrong, but as we continue to watch here, Michael Lees P4 at the moment, Chadwick getting past him, and now Adam Delmont there with him as they head on down. And meanwhile, looking behind them, well, this is the long battle for P7 as they come through the left-hander of which their turn number 3, and it's going to be Isaac Doble holding off Neil Ferry at the moment, with Matthew Cheverton staying close to him as they all charge off road. Now kind of outer left-hander and onwards towards what is turn number 5. Well, Ferry looking around the outside here. Can he get the move done up towards Hawthorne? Can he get it done before they break the way into the right-hander? Because he'll be forced himself the long way round. And the answer is yes, he does get ahead of Isaac Doble. Meanwhile, the rest of the drivers behind all staying together, albeit Neil Ferry gets it wrong there, coming through the corner onto the grass. And all the hard work he's done is going to be undone in the blink of an eye as he rejoins, gets the power down a bit too aggressively as he transitions from grass to asphalt. And Ferrier is only going to move further down the order now as he rejoins, and effectively joins in behind Andrew Pike and John Higgins Jr. in P15. So one mistake has proven so costly as he gets himself all back onto his bearings. But looking from him back up to Marcello Rellis, P10 at the moment, and finds himself right in the middle of all this. But the problem for him is he's got Sam Smith right behind, and as we look back from the rear of the Honda Civic Type R, we can see it is currently the VRGT Honda that's being chased by a bumperless Hyundai Elantra in the form of the iRace eSports car of Sam Smith as they head up towards turn number 1 this time. No way through as they come through the right hand. That's Smith having to look for a potential cutback run. He'll have to run up the hill towards Druid, but will it be enough? Knows the answers. Real there, just keeping him honest and keeping at bay as they head down towards turn 3 on another lap. But right on through here and absolutely popping from the exhaust of both cars. Will Sam Smith will be losing out to a degree on the straights with that aerodynamic damage, and Reles will feel a bit more comfort as they head in towards the left-hander of turn number 4. But Reles going for a much later line, Smith going for a very early line by comparison. So both drivers here trying to assert dominance over one another into the apex, but then Reles just keeping itself comfortable as they head up towards Hawthorne's Bend. Meanwhile, further back, Alex Meredith battling side by side with James Spanskis into Surtees, and the Meredith and Lobato racing driver getting the move done for P23. That's P10 in the prime class, but with a wounded car, heavily wounded one after that contact with Phil McDougall. And the two drivers here as they head side by side up the hill, where it's going to be Spanskis looks around the outside, and well, that's the difference between a damaged Elantra and one that's not, in the fact that Spanskis has so much more straight line speed, but Meredith defending hard here, getting the elbows out, and Spanskis flashes lights, I think, feeling as though he was elbowed out, but Meredith will say it was hard racing as they make the way out of turn number 6 and up towards 7. We're heading towards the braking zone here for all the right-hander. Things calm down for a brief moment. Meanwhile, we look back to that long battle for P7, and as they head on through and on to another lap very shortly, well, now Matthew Sheraton finds himself in the much coveted P7 position with what is then the train of cars behind Isaac Doble, fellow prime driver to Sheraton, and then it's a pack of what is 6 pros all itching for top 10 spots in the overall championship positions as they head up towards Druid's Bend. And well, now this is a concertina, it's a feast for the eyes as we see there Andrew Pike almost getting it wrong under brake and the car kicking sideways, but just about catches it in time. But everybody here right now eager for a top 10 finish to wrap up their day at Brands Hatch, but who's going to be the one to fight it? That's the question. As meanwhile, I believe there's an off track for Michael Lees. Michael Lees has gone to the wall, or the barrier if you will, at turn number 4, and as he rejoins, well, Sheraton here is going to come on through, and my eyes, I can't believe it. Sheraton's back into the lead, and what has been a win in race number 2, could he be making a double win here today as Isaac Doble now tries to do what Sheraton's only done a moment ago, but Lees has got himself back up to speed, and as they come out the corner, Lees defending as hard as possible, and this is uncomfortable viewing for Doble because he's going to find himself on the inside. And the problem here is the fact he's got pros all looking around the outside. They're all going 2-3 wide up into Dingledale. Surely not. They're going to make it all through unscathed. Well, in the end, there was a bit of contact between Lees and Doble. Lees off the circuit, Doble on the inside. Lees follows on the outside of Sterlington as they come on through. Sam Smith pushes his way into position. They power their way up towards the turn number 9. And as they come on in, my goodness, how they all survive that, or just about. I'll never know. I think that comes down to car control for Michael Lees in particular, when the car was almost ready to let go, but he didn't let go and keeps himself there, but he's lost out versus Sheraton and Doble. One costly mistake, and it's stockaded as they make the way into Paddock Hill Bend on lap number 9 of 14, and coming on down and around. Meanwhile, Marcello Reles goes wider for VRGT, rejoins me on the back of the field, and very in contact with Reles' contact to the rear of what is their John Higgins Jr.'s car as they come through. That was not Reles, in fact, yes, it was Reles in the contact in the Honda, and meanwhile, Neil Ferry has been turned around and made to go to the pits. He's been towed to the pits due to the damage picked up. But meanwhile, looking back to the battle for P2 in the prime class, this is Isaac Doble versus Michael Lees, and this was the corner only moments ago where Lees got it wrong, and as they head up towards Hawthorne's this time, while Isaac Doble just defends, keeping the car in the middle of the road. Lees looking for a way around the outside or the inside, he'll take either, but right now not getting any of them as they come in towards turn number 5, and through Hawthorne's they trot, and meanwhile up the road, that is Wayne Douglas off the road with Sam Smith ahead of him, but everybody here trying to pick apart positions ever further, but nobody able to try and find a move at the moment in this long line of cars. But from them, we do look back to outside the top 20, and in particular to Luke Jones, who's trying to make his way into the top 20 versus Matthew Jolly, albeit behind them we do have James Spanskis, who's also trying to play a bit of a move here, but goes deep instead. And meanwhile, battling with Palamaniti, Mark Sykes comes on through ahead of Spanskis, and now Sykes will have the task of trying to find his way past what is there, the GRT machine of Maniti as they head in towards Sterling Sterling's bend. Can't get close enough to make the move initially, but I think his target will be to try and make it on the start-finish straight. But as they settle down for a brief moment, we look from them back up to the batting at the front of the field. And here's your top three, your race leaders of Jamie Dory, who running up towards the top end of the championship right now, as Gavin Garner looking for the move for the lead. But meanwhile, Chadwick also trying to get involved. And as we look back from the rear of the next gen race with Douglas Motorsport car, everywhere you look up and down the field, we've got battles aplenty. But right now, the battle for the lead is well and truly underway, as Dory having a comfortable start to this race, being able to open up a gap. Now starting to find that weight is kicking in, with Gavin Garner with a lot less weight in the car by comparison, being hounding him all over the course of this lap. And William Chadwick, his natural pace on his debut, trying to make it 3 out of 3 overall. But as they come down through turn number 6 and in towards 7, they go very shortly. These drivers all pushing on hard up the hill, going through the right-hander. When it's turn number 7, they're through Dingledale and in towards Sterling. Well, for Gardner, it's a tricky spot to be in, because he wants to make the move for the win, but at the same time, he's got to be cognizant of the fact that Chadwick is there and ready to pounce. So instead, Gardner's going to go defensive here. And I think the next gen racing drivers might be trying to work together to try and make it a 1-2 rather than compromise one other races. They're going to work towards the team championship goal rather than work towards their own individual goals here, albeit Jamie Dory will be pleased with that. But I think Gardner may have an itch to scratch with regards to winning later on. But as they come on through, it's gone to lap number 11. Meanwhile, further back, Joseph Doble versus Adam Delmont into the first corner as well. And Doble trying to come back on the inside of the cutback move. Delmont covers him off and simply says, no, I'm going to defend it here into the inside into Druid. You've got to be ready for that. But the number 11 driver here of Joseph Doble trying to cut it around. Druids can't quite find a way, but constantly falling the side. And then Matthew Cheverton, your prime leader, will in a very comfortable P6 at the moment, the Aztec Racing driver. I don't know what he's had for breakfast today or for dinner this evening, but I can tell you one thing, where it's at, he's going to have it again, I think, going into next round, because it's working out a treat. But as we cut from him back to your overall leaders, here is Dory right now, and Gardner taking a look up the inside, this time in the Audi's power, gradually making itself felt as they go into Hawthorns. But Chadwick looks around the outside, and you can see what Chadwick's trying to do here. He's trying to cut the momentum back in, and on the inside immediately here he goes all in, and will Gardner there leaving the door open and being made to tuck in behind as they power their way up towards Dingledale. So that's one place game for Chadwick, and a brilliant piece of strategic racing. And now only one driver stands between him and making it a triple win today, and that is Jamie Dory, the NXTGEN Season 1 champion, as they make the way up towards turn number 9. They're heading towards the braking zone here. The Honda will have it all in the corners on the straights. It'll be a bit more of a level playing field to a degree, and with Gardner just behind, he's not out of this yet. This top 3 continue to push one another to the absolute limit. Meanwhile, outside the top 10 and battling for what is the final spot inside the top 5 of the prime class, it's Matthew Addy defending hard here versus Andrea Talasco and Paul Scott. Talasco on the inside there of the corner of the two Audis. It's the gold and black Audi of Talasco versus what is there, the black, red and silver Audi of Paul Scott. And as they make the way in towards turn 1 this time, 3 to go. Matthew Addy still keeping them there in the P16 overall, P5 in class, as he heads up the hill towards turn number 2. But as they do onto the brakes, Benjamin McCluskey only 7 attempts up the road and thinking as though he's broken away. Meanwhile, further behind them, heading under braking into Druids, it's going to be Jolly on the inside of Jones, gets the move done. Meanwhile, we've had a change of overall leader. It's Chadwick who's going to lead. We're hearing that Jamie Dory has fallen off the circuit on this lap, and we will try and take a look at that very shortly. But right now, Jolly up to P20, and William Chadwick has taken the lead of this race. The Altus Esports driver now trying to run away with it to the checkered flag. But let's find out what exactly happened to Jamie Dory. As he made his way into turn number 4, in the end carrying a bit too much speed by looks of things, and understeers wide of quarter exit, and then just a slight knock to the barrier. And for Jamie Dory, well, that is going to, I think, take away all the momentum he's got and the wind in his proverbial sails for the win, and his target will be on the podium now. As they make the way towards the penultimate lap, lap 13 coming up very shortly. Meanwhile, further behind, Joseph Doble, having cleared Adam Delmont, now stays in P4 with Delmont within a half a second behind. I think feeling comfortable here as they power their way onto another lap. Further behind them, we still do have the battle for P2 in the prime class, P10 overall, between Isaac Doble and Michael Lees as they head onto the start-finish straight. And as they go on through, meanwhile, Reales versus Romy behind, and Romy going around the outside, but we stay focused on this battle for the run-up spot in Chrome Class as they come on down. Lee's trying to go all the way round, puts two wheels onto the gravel, but just about keeps them in track limits. And Isaac Doble here giving them the space to rejoin, but as they come through Druids, Lee's turns in, but he can't make Doble disappear, and Doble there bookending the car as they make their way down towards turn number 3. And Lee's away with the back of him, a bit of a shunt to the rear of the Honda there, and Michael Lee's right now really starting to get his elbows out. You can see the damage on the front bumper of the NXTGEN Racing Elantra. It's crumpled in on the centre point. Meanwhile, the double sim racing machine continues to drive on and continues to frustrate Lee's championship leader going into tonight and trying to get as many points as possible to retain that championship lead in the Pro class come the end of tonight. But as they power the way up towards Hawthorne's bend, takes a little bit of sneak peek into Hawthorne's, can't quite find it, instead has to wait. Romy right there behind by 1/10, and I think Andrea Romy taking a look, but Lee's defending here. He doesn't want a pro to get between the two of them. You can understand why. He wants this battle to be for himself. And as they head down through Sheen in towards Dingledale, well, both drivers here pushing on as much as they can through the right-hander and in towards the braking zone for Sterling's very shortly. And as they come down the gears, well, Isaac Doble looking comfortable right now. And I think that knock on the rear for Isaac Doble is giving him a bit of a boost. Meanwhile, Michael Lees, by comparison with the damage he's picked up, may now be playing the defensive race all the way to the end for a P11 finish overall. But as they come onto the final lap, meanwhile, we look to your race leaders. It's Chadwick versus Gardner as they come through 2 and in towards 3. And well, these two right now keeping one another honest. But Dory behind, falling away very gradually after falling off the circuit and that knock to the wall. I would imagine that Dory right now focused on one thing, that's just keeping the car pointed in a straight line and getting it to the end of the race. Meanwhile, for Chadwick, he's pushing on here to try and break away from Gardner and just give himself some comfort in case there's any late mistakes. But given the pace that Chadwick has shown in the first 2 races, I think if he just keeps it calm, he'll be safe from Gardner as that gap opens up to 7/10. But roaring on through. And meanwhile, further down the order, we do have a little bit of a mini battle here building up. They're yet to go on to lap number 14. They are, in fact, a lap down, almost on the field. And this is Reese Watt versus Gabriel Yilmaz in the battle for P30. Yilmaz defending here as Watt tries to go for the move on the inside. Can't quite find it, as that's where they'll stay for now. But meanwhile, looking back to the leaders as they come up towards Sterling's Bend. Well, here comes your top 3, and Garner falling further away here. And I think this is Chadwick's to lose now as they make the way up towards the final corner. And what could we say on the debut? It's been some time since we've seen William Chadwick in a Next Gen Racing Series, but having taken his craft all the way to the top with Altus Esports, he takes it to the top here on his debut as he comes on through to make it 3 wins out of 3. Overall for the Altus Esports driver, William Chadwick is your winner in race 3, ahead of Gavin Garner P2, Jamie Dory P3, and then it will be Joseph Doble who holds off Adam Delmont for P4, and then Matthew Cheverton makes it 2 prime wins out of 2 today for Aztec Racing P6 overall. He goes 1 step further in this race compared to the previous one, and then Isaac Doble rounds off the run-out spot of the Prime Class P10 overall, fend off Michael Lees, who finished on the final spot of the Prime Podium P11. And as more drivers make their way to the line, Alan McCain's gone through P19 already. We've got a bit of battling here between Mark Sykes and Alex Meredith. Both cars looking as though they need repair work, but Alex Meredith finishing P22 and with that completing the Prime top 10. Sykes just behind him P11 in Class P23 overall. Paolo Maniti there P24, and then more drives still to come through as Gabriel Yilmaz there having a bit of an excursion on the exit of Hawthorne's, and he rejoins. But next driver to finish their race will be the P33 driver, a lap down, and he's been able to join for the final racer today. Next Gen Racing Yellow's Lee Horn, who comes to the timeline P33 and what will be P20 in the Prime class. No points accrued there for the 36 driver, but still he'll take the result. And we have a bit of a battle going on between what is here, I believe, not Daniel Fritz who's finished his race, our apologies, but between Reese Watt and Gabriel Yilmaz as they come towards the timeline. And Reese Watt for JW Motorsport here coming through for P30, and what has been a damaging day for the JW Motorsport Audi driver at Gabriel Yilmaz P31. But they are your last finishers on the lead lap, ladies and gentlemen. And I do believe we have all of our finishers now across the line. But as our race winners make their way into the pit lane, well, for Chadwick, it's an absolutely brilliant debut in the NXTCC. We all know with those 3 wins, he's definitely going to start picking up success ballast. If not today, if he does do the same in round number 7, then that ballast is going to come his way. Gavin Gardner, a great result, but good to see him runner up once again, and Dory P3. But meanwhile, the Aztec Racing driver Matthew Sheraton, as his teammate passed him there, going around the final corner. He knows what he's done in the 390 car. He's pulled off 2 wins in class, his first 2 of the season, and also his first 2 top 10s overall the season. You rarely see primes pull off top 10s in quick succession, but Sheraton's absolutely made it work here today at the Brands Hatch circuit, and as he was being passed there by his teammate in the number 29 and Matthew Jolly, I think for Aztec Racing, they're going to be absolutely pleased with the performances. For Palamaniti, it's been a difficult day today as he makes his way on around towards what is there, the pit lane, but the GRT Esport driver ended on a relative high P24 overall, and knowing there's another round next week to bounce back at. But as he comes into the pit lane, that's the racing complete, ladies and gentlemen, and let's take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And in our third and final race of the day, William Chadwick made it 3 out of 3 for Altus Esports by just under 9/10 of a second versus Gavin Goddard for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport. It could have been a potential win for Jamie Dory, the fellow Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport driver, but after a mistake at what was Surtees corner, having to relinquish the position and finish P3. Joseph Doble, P4 there, not quite on the podium, but still taking major points for Doble Sim Racing into the next round, with Adam Delwant P5 for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, and then Matthew Sheraton making it 2 prime wins in a row, and a P6 overall for Aztec Racing. A brilliant drive there, 3/10 clear of Wayne Douglas for Next Gen Racing with Douglas Motorsport, and if it had gone differently today, I think Wayne Douglas would argue he could have had multiple podiums, but still finishing with good top 10 finishes in races 2 and 3, and that's what matters most. Sam Smith, P8 there for the iRacing Esports team, ahead of John Higgins Jr., with the TSRC driver being followed on home by P10 Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing, making another prime podium, and that prime championship lead is coming closer and closer towards him. However, just behind him, P11 best the rest overall, and 3rd place on the podium for the primes, Michael Lees, the Next Gen Racing yellow driver there, bringing home some major points to keep his championship lead alive after today, and completing the prime podium of Sheraton, Doble and Lees. Marcello Redders P12 of VRGT Racing Team, having a difficult final race today with the early contact costing him dear, but fended off the TSRC or the Sim Racing Collective car of Andrew Pike, and then Benjamin McCluskey and Andrea Talasco completing the top 15 for Next Gen Racing Yellow and VRGT Racing Team respectively, and with that the top 5 of the prime class. Matthew Addy P16 for Next Gen Racing Yellow, missing out on a potential prime top 5, but still a better run of form here today for Matthew Addy, and he'll be hoping that continues next week. And then at Paul Scott P17 for Next Gen Racing Blue, with the iRacing Esports driver Alan McCain splitting the field of primes there, and Matthew Jolly for Aztec Racing Team 2 finishing ahead of Luke Jones for JW Motorsport to complete the top 20 overall. Alex Meredith P21, the Meredith and Lobato Racing driver, having a difficult final race of the day. Indeed, 3 races which have been a challenge, but still ahead of Mark Sykes for Next Gen Racing Blue, with Paolo Maniti, James Vasquez-Gal and Mikey Doble completing the top 25, and Mikey Doble involved in that opening lap instant. The Double Sim Racing driver losing major ground in this race, but still, given his performances in the first 2 races of the day, I think he'll feel as though he can write one off and still hold on to what is the top 3 in the championship. Phil McDougall P26 for CXR Project Black, head of the Aztec Racing driver Jake Pitt, and the top 30 being rounded out by the trio of Daniel Fritz, Andrea Romy and Reese Watt, with Gabriel Yilmaz your final finisher on the lead lap, P31 for Aztec Racing Team 2. Drivers who finished a lap down in the end, Melvin Erkison for Bright Esports, Lee Horn for Next Gen Racing Yellow and JW Motorsports Ian Manners, and then finishing 6 laps down with a retirement. I do believe as he finished half the race distance, he will be classified as a finisher in P35, Neil Ferrier for 4XR Ferrier Sim Racing, and then our retirements in this race include Nick Clibbins, P36, ahead of Costa Chatsconson Antonu, Josh Millington, and behind him was the group of drivers of Philip Garside and Jonathan Collins. And those were our 40 drivers and how they finished in this race. We should just quickly clarify, ladies and gentlemen, your eyes do not deceive you. Josh Millington is a pro driver. He was incorrectly shown as a prime driver in our first 2 races of the day. But a difficult race for some, a positive race for others. But, well, we've seen it from one perspective in the commentary booth, ladies and gentlemen. But we're not quite done just yet with today's show, because whilst the race is completed, we've still got our upcoming post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and we'll be back for those in approximately 15 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And today we're going to be hearing from 3 of our pros and 1 of our pro-ams. And we'll kick off with our debutant and triple winner today. Indeed, I believe picking up a Grand Slam for pole position in qualifying and also adding the fastest laps to his name. And that is William Chadwick from Altus Esports. And then we'll be going on to the 4XR Ferrier sim racing driver, newly promoted to pro class of Neil Ferrier. Before hearing from our third and final pro of Mikey Doble from Doble Sim Racing, and then we'll be coming on to Michael Lees, our Pro-Am Championship leader going into tonight, and I do believe we'll be leaving it tonight with the Pro-Am Championship still in his hands. But without further ado, we kick off with Will Chadwick, and as he does join me in the interview room, good evening to you, Will, and well, it's been a long time since I've last seen you on circuit in a Next Gen series, but what a way to return to one, making it a Grand Slam today at Brands Hatch.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, long time no speak. Yeah, I spent, the first half of the year. We can say that now, can't we? It's nearly June. But spent the first half of the year doing the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Got a bit of free time now that's finished. Up and towards like the contender series for the World Championship later on in the year. So Jamie was like, "Oh, come and do some touring car." So I decided to come and do it, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, we're very happy to see you on the grid and taking it from the Porsches to the touring cars. Interesting transition, but it looks like it's a transition you very quickly adapted to, in the fact in qualifying you put down the pace lap and it seems as though nobody was able to beat you to pole.
Well, obviously I'm very fortunate tonight coming in without any ballast or success ballast, and you've got the championship contenders that have got quite a significant amount. So I knew with myself, I thought I'd not raced touring cars pretty much at all in iRacing, but I knew if I wasn't getting a maximum score today, I would be reasonably disappointed. Obviously, stuff can not go your way sometimes, and I nearly threw it away in race 1 potentially. But yeah, it was a good lap in qualifying, and I enjoyed all the 3 races.
Well, Dean, going from qualifying to race 1, we saw you leading from the front after a great start, but in your own words, almost throwing it away. It looked as though it was a little bit of a mistake there. I have to ask, was it a mistake from focusing too much on the guys behind, or was it just out of the blue?
You can never look behind you, Paul. You've always got to look ahead. It was just a genuine mistake. Got the car. The way we run these cars, or the way suggested to run these cars, is that you have them really aggressive on the turn in at the rear. Obviously being front wheel drive, so just a little bit too much rotation on the braking, and once it starts to go, you really do lose it. So just a case of flooring the throttle, but the time lost was too much for me to keep the position, and then it was a case of having to pass Wayne back.
Well, Dean, battling hard with Wayne Douglas in the Veloster. We see you've opted for the Honda Civic Type R. Is there a particular reason why you've chosen this over the other 3 available?
The reason I have is because it's the only one Altus has a paint for, so I was kind of locked into the Honda.
Oh, goodness me. An interesting reasoning, but you've definitely made it work. And after batting your way to victory versus Wayne Douglas in race 1 and also demonstrating your car control along the way, race 2 came along and it looked as though it was relatively business as usual, with Sam Smith, Neil Ferrier and company battling one another for second place behind.
I think once you break the toe, it becomes quite a bit easier. Obviously, the Honda's not very quick in a straight line, so you've got to really get in the kind of flow of it. It seems like around the back section of here at Brands, really high speed corners, seems to be where it excels a little bit more. So, pushing it right up to the track limits on the grass and just making sure that line's as efficient as possible, not slipping the fronts too much on exit, is really important. So getting in that groove can really help. And I think in race 2, because I was able to really focus and I didn't have too much of a challenge from behind after I was able to break the toe, I was just able to focus and set some good lap times.
And that paying off very well to lead you up to race number 3. And we did see the number 17 come out of Lottery Bowl. Unfortunately, we couldn't make it, so you were able to take pole position for the 3rd and final race of the day. But any thoughts when you saw the number 17?
I was in a voice chat with Kevin Siggy, one of the Red Line drivers who's doing the ESL stuff, and I said, oh, I'm going to win it from 17th, and he goes, are you sure? And I said, no, I don't think so. I didn't think I was going to be able to get through, just with how much I could potentially get slowed down. And I know Jamie's obviously fast, being leading the championship for several rounds this season so far. So just a case of being really brave at the start. Down into turn number 3, I was very brave, I would say, on the fact that, you know, there's quite a bit of incidents and a little bit of crashing in front of me. So I was able to make up a few positions there, and then it was just a case of going one by one and making sure I was losing as little time as possible to get to the front. But it was a good battle.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of that moment on lap 1 at turn 3, we saw you carve your way past effectively 5 drivers in the space of one corner, if my memory serves me correctly. And by the end of the first lap, you'd already moved from P17 to literally just outside the top 10. And progress didn't stop from that point onwards. I wonder if that made you a bit more buoyant that, you know what, this might be a reality.
Well, if I had stayed 17th on lap 1, or maybe only got one position, it would have made it a lot harder for me. So that ability to pass those cars early on was crucial towards my race, and I think it's what really, because we only made it, you know, with a few laps to go, attacking Jamie and Gavin. So I think without that happening, I wouldn't have maybe have had a chance to win this race. But I'm grateful it happened, and I'm happy to come away with a maximum point score.
Indeed, and a brilliant battle at the very end between yourself, Gavin, and Jamie. And it looked as though for some time you're almost preying on Gavin to try and make the move for you and then seize on the two. But in the end, you had to fight your way past the pair of them with the Audi looking strong.
Yeah, Gavin was defending really well. To be fair to him, he was holding a really good defensive line. It was just a case of trying to set him up a little bit to make either go a little bit deep or just have a bad exit, and I was able to actually overlap him because there's not a lot of overspeed in terms of draft round here, so you're going to struggle to make a move on the brakes from pure just drafting up to them. However, I was able to kind of make him have a little bit of a worse exit going for the first of the fast corners. I don't know what they're called anymore, but able to get on the inside, and that then made it possible for me to attack Jamie, who unfortunately made a mistake.
Indeed, a nice pass and a critical mistake from Jamie. Saw you run the way to the checkered flag and make it 3 out of 3. And we're going into this round with no weight in the car, and you may still not have any success ballast in round number 7. But what you do have on the cards is a visit to the circuit of the Americas. How are you feeling for the Texas circuit?
Well, I don't know. We'll see, I think. It depends how this car handles round there. I'll give it a good go again, and I think, especially if I'm going in without success ballast, I think the aim has to be the same. If I can get 2 maximum point scores before I get on to success ballast, I think that would be a good place to start, but who knows, it could be a bigger reverse grid next week.
Well, we'll have to wait and find out how it plays out for you in the US of A. But just before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Thank you to NXTGEN Racing for putting on this league. It's been nice having Jamie let me come in at the halfway point of the season. Thank you to Douglas Motorsport, who sponsors the series, and thank you to all my personal partners, such as Next Level Racing, VRS, Race Tech, Alta C Sports / Alta C Sports Engineering, and yeah, thank you guys thank you, Paul, for doing the broadcast.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you in the interview. Congratulations once again on your debut, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time in Texas.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Have a great night. So hearing there from Will Chadwick, the pro driver from Altus Esports, absolutely delivering on his debut, and in his own words there, focused on the concept of needing to score maximum points today, and with no success ballast in the car, the minimum target of being taking all the wins. Albeit a bit of a question mark over the final race of the day, but making a fantastic start, moving up into the top 10 come the end of the first lap, and with the headway made and further mistakes from other drivers in front, such as we see there from Michael Lease on the replay footage, where Lease going a bit wide out of Hawthorne's corner. I mean that Chadwick would had to be daring, but at the same time he had the time to make up the places, and in the end it was a mistake from Jamie Doyle which took away a battle that could have run to the checkered flag and saw Chadwick make it 3 out of 3. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how he gets on at Texas. We do believe he won't have any success ballast in the car still, but after that, if he makes it another 3 out of 3, he'll jump right up there into the thick of it, and then that Honda will definitely be feeling the weight bearing down on it. But as we come from our first interview to our second interview of the day, we'll very shortly be hearing from Neil Ferrier, and the pro driver having a challenging day of racing over the course of all 3 races. After 2 strong races, a race number 3 to forget potentially, but as we do get ready to take a look back at how his race played out and talk to him about it. Also for the Ferrier Sim Racing driver making his debut in the pro class after Prime last week, and will very good at racing from him all the same. As he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we are just waiting for confirmation that he is all set to go. but I think he may be ready without further ado. But also interested to hear the perspective of racing the Veloster around here, because the Veloster did look to be quite the fast car. As he's now ready to join me, he joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Neil, and well, what a mixed set of races today. A qualifying and a race 1 and race 2 that definitely were coming your way for podiums and top 5s. But race number 3, it all ended in a bit of early tragedy.
Yeah, no, it was quite a good night, to be honest with you. Brands actually, obviously, I've raced TCR round there quite a bit, so I was looking forward to it when I seen it getting all the part getting replaced for the grid issue. So I put a few laps in before tonight, and I found a bit of pace and managed to get in there. So I was quite happy with qualifying in race 1 and race 2. And again, race 3 just never worked out for me, to be honest with you.
Breaking it down into its constituent parts, with it being a circuit that you're excited to race at, qualifying so it being very nip and tuck for the top 5 spots on the grid, you're able to make your way into P3. Was that the best lap you could get out the car, or was there a little bit more in there?
It was. There would have been a little bit more, but I was kind of just. I was happy with. At least I wasn't. If I had to do an extra couple of attempts to go a bit further up the grid, I would have done it. But I knew once I put a good lap in, I wasn't really going to drop back to where I was at the last round, so I was kind of safe out the mid pack. It just never worked out again for me. I managed to get a couple of attempts, and then I would just lose it in the last sector. I just started losing a bit of grip in qualifying, and then Paul Chadwick, I don't know, showing his class, like I said, phenomenal driver, and putting it on pole with that time as well. So he was really good, and it was. I was happy to start behind Will because I knew what kind of pace he had, and I've raced against Will a few times before. So, and that was good. I was happy with that. I just knew I needed to get a decent start, and then get up the inside for turn 1 because I didn't really want to be getting muddled up in turn 1 to then get shuffled out wide to then lose the drive up to Druid. So the start of the race went good for race 1, and then I just went for there. Just wanted to kind of stick with the front guys and see what kind of pace I had, and I just ran out of a bit of talent towards the end, to be honest with you.
Well, there's plenty of talent on display from yourself in race number 1 either way, and we saw a brilliant battle between yourself and Sam Smith on the opening race, and it seemed to be a rivalry that ran throughout the entirety of the first 2 races of today.
Yeah, me and Sam, we have raced quite a few different TCR leagues. Every time I seem to join a TCR league, Sam's there, so it's was brilliant to race Sam. So much respect between the two of us. As I say, Robin's racing, so me and Sam know that we can lean on each other without going over the limit. So it's good. It was good to race against these guys again, for sure. Like, it's the first time I've probably been in a proper podium fight, and I just knew that I had to, especially with the 4 hours, it was one of them. It was like try not make too many passes and try not make too many lunges to allow Will to break away so early, because I knew at some point that something was going to happen in front. Just never worked out quite as early. I felt sorry for Douglas on the last lap of race 1, dropping it off and touching the grass and putting himself on the wall. Luckily, just missed in the back of me, or that would have been race 1 and first overall podium out the window.
Well, indeed, it was a scary moment right at the end of race number 1, and unfortunate for Wayne Douglas, but fortunate for yourself not being collected to, as you say, take your first overall podium. And then in race number 2, with all the battling that played out, we saw you in the end knocked down to P5, albeit it looked as though you were enjoying being right in the thick of it all the way through.
Oh, race 2 was probably the best race I've had in a long time. It was good to be, like I said, getting in there, getting stuck in and about the podium positions, and then safety cars weren't really my strong point. I kind of got sleeping there. And then obviously I'm not in the overall championship, so I don't want to be costing anybody for the overall title. So it was one of them. I knew I had to race Mikey, but I didn't want to race him too hard. And it got to a point where it was like I was taking too many risks to then possibly mess his race up. So I was like, right, okay, I'll sit behind Mikey for a couple of laps, take a breather, and see where we're at. And then I got back to him again, and it was got to be a risky move a couple of times. So I was like, nah, put the sensible head on here and don't ruin somebody else's championship. And then I got close to him a few times, looked at a couple of passes, never quite worked out. And then unfortunately got myself incited, gone, I think it was through Hollywood. Got myself a bit unexcited behind Mikey there, and just got myself slowed down on the last lap, which took me away from the podium, unfortunately. But that was that. I don't know how many times I had to either try and make my mind up early to close the door on Mikey or leave him a bit of space, and some really cool situation. And it was really good, to be fair. It kind of made the night, and I just knew race 3 was going to be the hard one for me.
Indeed, and coming on to race number 3, from the outset there was a little bit of elbow knocking through the opening lap, which saw you go very wide at turn number 3, and all the way through it looks as though you're constantly having to battle upstream, and for quite some time battling hard with some of the prime drivers, including Melvin Eckerson.
Yeah, that was there was a, I don't know who it was, but somebody went wide at coming out the exit. Drew has cut the grass, and then I was trying to brake not to get stuck 3 wide. Unfortunately, I think I got stuck 3 wide, and then they just came together across the front of me, and then unfortunately, I don't know who it was that was on the right hand side. He got spun, went down the grass, which they can't stop on the grass that well, and just unfortunately there wasn't. I never got any damage for it. It was just that side to side contact that forced me wide, and then when you've got that many cars behind you, you have to try and resave jointly. So kept an eye in the mirror, made sure that I was getting on in a decent space to not cause too much trouble. And then yeah, unfortunately, when I rejoined, went into the next corner, there was Mikey Doble backwards going towards the Indy circuit. Unfortunately, so yeah, it was just one of them. And then later in the race, or a few laps later, I was back to where I thought I should be, fighting for top tens or the top 10, and then unfortunately I think I just got caught up in somebody else's mess, unfortunately. But it's racing, it happens, and yeah, maybe the stewards will have a look at some of the stuff and see what happens.
Oh, indeed, it's always the way with the stewards. Will have the handful after the racing today. But for yourself, 2 podiums and a difficult end doesn't belie the fact you're gaining momentum in the championship. And next week we head to Texas for the Circuit of the Americas. How are you feeling for COTA?
Oh, I really don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the circuit. Maybe this layout might change my mind a bit, but I've raced a few of the other layouts at Kota, and I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest with you. So yeah, I might struggle there a bit, but I'll just have to get the elbows out and try and get some pace and see where we go. But yeah, it's probably not my strongest circuit on the calendar at the minute, so I will have to wait and see what next week brings in.
Oh, we will indeed, and we look forward to seeing you take the Veloster to the Americas. But just before we let you go, Neil, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just say again, the 4XR boys, Casey Motorsport, obviously yourself for putting on the show for the live stream. A big well done to Will Chadwick coming in and kind of schooling us all. Just shows you his talent. So, fair play to him. And then obviously Mikey Doble again coming through the pack. Some fair good racing there. So thanks to the boys for being respectful and getting on with the show.
Well, Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview. Congratulations once again on your performances today, and we look forward to seeing you in America in a week's time.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a great evening. So here and there from Neil Ferrier, our pro driver, with a difficult end to the day, but having a fantastic start and really pushing hard for what would be a third place in qualifying, followed up by a double top 5, and with it a podium in race number 1. And in his own words, enjoying the race, and as we do see it all start to go wrong on the replay footage here from race number 3, what was coming towards the end of his race, affecting that run to P35. But as you heard there, his focus really been on enjoying the side-by-side racing and the rivalry with Sam Smith, something that's carried through with the pair, and they've known one another in racing each other on the iRacing platform for quite some time, and that rivalry really coming through, and the first time the two of them have battled together for a podium finish. And well, it was quality and brilliant from start to finish in race number 1. Race number 2 saw the elbows get out even more, with other drivers getting into the mix, including Mikey Doble, and then race number 3 just not going the way. But it does happen in race 3 with that reverse grid. It can always go wrong when you find yourself in the mid-pack, and today for Neil Ferrier, race number 3 just was not to be. But not being a fan of the circuit of the Americas, it'll be interesting to see whether fortune favours him, as normally when a driver says they don't enjoy a circuit, that can be where they get their best results of the season. It may be a little bit of a curse, but we'll have to wait to see whether the 4XR Ferrier sim racing driver, it works out to be a reality. But as we now get ready for our third interview of this evening, you've heard from William Chadwick and Neil Ferrier, and we'll hear also from the pro of Mikey Doble. And as he gets ready to join me, it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective, particularly with the success ballast and the weight he's had to carry today, and with that weight, just how far he's had to go in order to get the most out of the car, given the fact that 56 kilograms is by no means a weight which is just easily a struggle in terms of the impact it does have to the machine. But as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, and in fact he does join me now, we do say good evening to Mikey Doble. And Mikey, it wasn't quite going to be 3 races out of 3 where you'd pick up top 10s, but you came extremely close, and a success ballast of 56 kilograms that you seem to make look quite manageable in the end at Brands Hatch.
Yeah, I mean, we won't touch on race 3 just yet, but no, I was pleased with the pace we had in the car tonight. I think, like you say, I think with the success ballast, I'm not sure what it equates to. I think it might even be more than 56 kilograms. But yeah, I think this was a good track to carry ballast on with not too much slow speed stuff. But yeah, just hooked up a good lap in qualifying and actually got 2 good decent starts in races 1 and 2 to get the races underway.
Most definitely. And speaking about that qualifying lap in the Elantra, we saw you constantly trying to chip away inside the top 10. At some points, putting yourself on the second row of the grid provisionally, but you couldn't quite find that final inch, if you will, to make your way onto the second row. What was it, do you feel, that held you back? Was it perhaps the lap time just not being there, or was it something about the car?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think on this occasion, it's definitely the ballast, because when I've carried the success ballast earlier on in the season at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, I qualified outside the top 20, so that's how much of an impact it can have if you're not quite on your game. But I think to be 4 tenths off of pole carrying all the ballast versus a very proven driver with no ballast is not a bad feat. I don't think I really had any more in that car to challenge for the first couple of rows on the grid, but yeah, I was nonetheless happy to qualify where I was.
And then going from qualifying into race number 1, we saw you get off to quite a strong start and battling hard throughout the race with a good number of your pro peers around you, including what were the likes of Josh Millington, Neil Ferrier, and also Andrew Pike. It looks as though you could give them as good as they were giving you at points.
Yeah, race 1 was a mega race. I really enjoyed that. Again, coming into the second half of the season, it becomes more about managing the championship and managing the lead. You know, sometimes you have to forget about people that are maybe guest appearances or not doing the full season, and just focus on those that are close to you in the points and try and beat those. And for me at the moment, it's Andrew Pike and Jamie, who are second and third in the championship coming into Brands. So I thought, really, if I can stay inside the top 10 and beat both of those two, then I'm only going to extend my championship lead. So yeah, I focused on getting past Andrew Pike in race 1 and picked off a couple more as well to try and build a little bit of a cushion between me and him. But yeah, brought it back in, I think, 5th place in the end in race 1, so that was pretty good.
Indeed, a top 5 finish, and then going even further in the second race of the day, and well, to pick up what was a spot on the podium at P3. It was a great drive from yourself, and you really had to push for it given the closeness of the likes of Neil Ferry around you.
Yeah, I tried to work with Neil a little bit through the middle portion of the race. Again, got a good start and managed to pick a couple off to get into that 4th position. But yeah, he made a couple of mistakes, and I think eventually he conceded the position to me to try and work with me rather than race me, so we could pull away from those behind. But with the carrying the extra weight on the car, as you get towards the end of the race, the tyres start to drop off maybe quicker than those around me, so it became more and more difficult to maintain that advantage for 3rd place as the race went on. But it got pretty close there on the last lap, but yeah, managed to hold them off and come back on the podium, which I think is probably up there with one of the best results of the season so far, considering the ballast.
Oh, 100% would agree with you on that. And just on the Elantra and the tyre wear, the Elantra throughout the history of the NXTCC has always been a car that has been quite aggressive to its front tyres, but having that weight added in as well, how do you change your driving approach, if at all, to try and avoid that weight bringing that tyre wear further into the race?
Yeah, that is correct about the tyre wear on this car. I think the car has been bopped a little bit, has been slowed down relative to the other cars since seasons 1 and 2 of the championship, but I always thought the Elantra had a better 1-lap pace than the Honda, but with the Honda I could maintain the same lap time throughout the course of the race, hence why it was my car of choice last season when I won the championship. But I thought I'd set myself a challenge of trying a different car for this series, this season, and it's definitely taken me half a season to really adapt my driving style to get the most out of this car. I struggled for at least the first 3 or 4 rounds, really, up until Nürburgring. So when the tyres are going off, because it does hurt the front tyres even more so with the weight, you can do things such as wind the brake bias back, which I tend to do. So when I'm running ballast, I'll run a lot more rear bias than I might otherwise if I'm not running ballast. So you can do that to help get the rotation in the car and take a little bit of stress off of those front tyres, rather than obviously rotating the car through the steering wheel as such.
Well, a smart approach there in order to help protect the front tyres and really get the car to rotate as well as you need it to. And well, speaking about things not going the way you needed them to, race number 3. In the end, a 26th place finish after what was some early contact and eventually having to come into the pits to repair work to the car.
Yeah, it was a shame because I think we were going to be on for a really great race there. It looked like a fun race from what I could see in the standings when I was going round, but unfortunately, I was a spectator for that one. Yeah, the contact through, we had some contact through Graham Hill Bend. It was 3 wide, which is fair enough. We got a bit sideways, and then yeah, I just got absolutely punted down into Surtees on lap 1. Just, I think it was very unnecessary contact, to be honest, because not only did it spit me off the track and put me to virtually dead last, it also broke my right rear suspension and the tracking, so the car was just crabbing down the straights for a few laps, and in the end it was undrivable. I kissed the barriers out on the GP loops, had to come in, take a fast repair, with the likelihood of a safety car being very low after the first couple of laps. It was yeah, I was out the race. I was never going to make it back to the top 15 to score any points, so I was watching the standings with intent to see how my rivals were getting on, but I think that overall across the 3 races I've either maintained my lead or maybe even stretched it out a little bit from Andrew Pike, which was ultimately the goal coming into tonight. But it's just a shame that I couldn't be a part of that last race, because I think it would have been fun.
Oh, indeed, it was unfortunate for yourself, but like you say, a championship lead being relatively maintained, if not slightly extended, and another opportunity to do so next week at the Circuit of the Americas in Texas. How are you feeling for the American circuit?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how the car is going to fare around there. I don't think it was going to be. I don't think it's a particularly strong circuit for the Elantra anyway, if you take out the fact that we've got ballast. So I think it's going to be a tough one, but again, it will be about trying to stay out of trouble. Circuit in America presents a lot of overtaking opportunities. It's very wide, but I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of opportunistic driving going on, which may cause some unpredictability in the results and some contact for sure. So yeah, a week of survival, I think, and to get through that without losing any points to my rivals and get one step closer to the ultimate goal at the end of the season.
I'm liking the approach, Mikey, and a very smart one at that. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a special thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's probably in bed by now, but yeah, thanks to you again, Paul, for great coverage. I see the comments in the YouTube. Everyone seems to be enjoying the stream, which is great. And thanks to any of my family who are still watching. And yeah, onto the real touring cars this weekend down at Thruxton. So we're looking forward to that, and then back to the proper championship next Tuesday.
Absolutely love it, Mikey. We wish you all the best at Thruxton this weekend. I'm sure you're going to absolutely nail it, and may the championship points continue to come your way, both in the real world and the virtual world, and we'll see you out on circuit in a week's time in the state of Texas.
Be very nice. Thank you very much. Cheers, Paul.
Have a great evening. So here and there from Mikey Doble, the Doble sim racing driver, who today, in his own words, really having to balance the racing in the focus on managing the car with a success balance, adding the risk of excessive wear on the front tyres. And as we said earlier, the Elantra being a car that's very aggressive on its tyres over multiple laps, over race distance, but being the one-lap pace car, and having to use a number of techniques, particularly with regards to the brake bias, in order to try and shift the weight transfer away from the front of the car towards the rear and get the rear tyres to do more of the work. But Mikey Doble already delivering in all 3 sessions today in terms of qualifying race 1 and race 2, but the 4th session not quite working out in race number 3 after that unfortunate incident into the turn number 4 on the opening lap, seeing him sent wide, and come the end of it not able to recover the car, instead needs coming to the pits for the fast repair that put him out of contention. But still, like he said, he's gained ground and maintained ground on his rivals, and sometimes that's what you've got to do when rounds don't go your way and you've got the maximum success balance with the car. And if he's able to do similar in Texas next time, then his championship campaign could well and truly be starting to make its way into his hands for a successful title defense. As we now come to our final interview of the day, we're going to be hearing very shortly from Michael Lease, the next-gen racing yellow driver who gets ready to join me. He's been patiently awaiting, and the Pro-Am driver's had an absolutely brilliant day of racing today to carry on from where he left off last time out. And as Pro-Am Championship leader going into tonight, I suspect he may be Championship leader coming out of tonight as well. Well, now he gets ready to join me. In fact, he is set to join, and we hear from him now. Good evening to you, Michael, and well, what a day you've had at Brands Hatch. A win in race number 1, a 5th place in race number 2, and another podium in race 3 of 3rd place. You were right in the thick of it in all 3 races. Some of the moments not quite going your way, but one thing's undeniable. As championship leader going into tonight, I suspect you're still championship leader of the Pro-Am class coming out of tonight.
Hello, Paul, me old sausage. Yeah, what a weekend! What a weekend! You know, Tuesday. What day is it? It's been bonkers. This. I was very happy with qualifying. You know, being up the front is so vital in this championship. It's so hard to make a pass on somebody, especially on a circuit like this where there's almost one line around the whole thing. So. Yeah, happy that I qualified well. Race 1, ecstatic. Yeah, to get a Pro-Am win and the top 10. That's fantastic. I was feeling good at that point. Yeah. I don't really know what else to say other than race 1 was a fantastic race, and I'll have 10 more of them, please.
Well, indeed, and before race number 1, qualifying seemed to really go your way as well, with a pole position in class in qualifying and a top 10 with it. But given the fact the top 27 was separated by a second in the end, and within that you had the best part of 10 Pro-Ams, and being able to stay one step ahead, that must also put a smile on your face now you've got the leading pace.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. I wasn't sure whether I was going to. I wasn't sure whether the Elantra would suit this track. I think, you know, with the BOP changes, it doesn't feel as strong as it maybe once was at the beginning. But at the beginning of the season, I couldn't drive it. Like, it took me a while to change my drive. It's totally different to drive this than it was the Veloster last season, and it took me quite a long time to get used to it. But yeah, I managed to get in behind Andrew Pike. I know he's fast, so yeah, I just try to sort of stay in his toe and draft up, and yeah, luckily managed to get a decent qualifying position. And that to be honest, that made all the difference. If I'd have qualified 30th, I'd have had a terrible weekend, as I have previously done. But yeah, qualifying up the front, it really just sets the tone for the whole day and all three races.
Oh, indeed, and a great qualifying session, a fantastic win in race number 1, and race 2 so you brought down a little bit in terms of finishing positions, taking what was P5 in class, albeit some great battling between yourself and some of your prime peers, including Matthew Cheverton.
So yeah, I mean, race 2, the problem with that was I did feel a little bit slower in that. I don't know why, possibly to do with the temperatures or something, but I didn't feel like I quite had the pace I had in race 1. But I didn't feel slow either. The problem is, as soon as you get pushed a tiny bit offline, you've got 7 guys ready to mug you. You know, so you just start sliding down the order, and then, you know, so you take a defensive line in the next one to stop them getting past, but then there's 3 guys behind them forcing the way through, and yeah, it just ends up as a big chain reaction. I just slid down the order as hard as I tried not to. As soon as I got a bit of breathing room, you know, I could start trying to work forwards again, but yeah, it's difficult. So in the end, I'm pretty sure I managed to get back into 3rd place in that one. And then on the very last lap, about, what would it have been? 1, 2, 3 corners from the end, I put a wheel in the grass and span off the circuit and clipped the barrier. And by the time I rejoined, 2 more pro-ams had gone past. So I ended up 5th there. So it could have been a triple podium.
Well, 100%. It was very unfortunate towards the end of race 2, but we saw you fight back strong in race 3. And coming on to that point about race 2 being stuck in a pack, race 3 saw yourself and what was Isaac Doble have to battle one another for the runner-up spot and simultaneously hold off a pack of 7 pros behind you.
Oh, how good was that? I mean, I don't know how much of it you put on the broadcast and saw, but my days. How fun was that? Yeah, me and Isaac banging doors side by side down Paddock Hill bends. Yeah, a good bit of respect between us, you know. Neither of us took each other out. I had an absolute blast there. Unfortunate, you know, that I couldn't make a move stick on him, but you know, when you have racing that close and that good and that respectful, like losing one of those, you can't really be mad at that.
Well, I 100% agree with you on that. Fantastic racing between the pair of you, and also at the same time, both of you fighting for the final spot inside the top 10. But like you say, Isaac able to take it this time. But the one thing he hasn't taken from today, unlike yourself, is the continued hold of the Prime Championship lead. And Texas lies in wait next week at the Circuit of the Americas. How are you feeling for it?
Well, that's another circuit that I'm going to have to learn. I do have it, but I've only driven on the east part of it, so I've got to learn the west part for next week. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I've found some pace in the car in the last couple of weeks, so I'm a lot more confident now than I was if you'd have asked me 3 or 4 weeks ago. So I think as far as learning the track goes, I'll be able to do it. Now I've got that underlying pace. I think it'll be okay. I don't expect that I'll be winning them, but as long as I can keep my place, you know, keep the points for the championship high, because we didn't have any Linus today. He was 2nd in the championship, so I guess this is his drop round. Hopefully we see him back, but if not, you know, he's lost some points on me today. Isaac, he's probably now my biggest rival. And obviously he's got the pace, you know, to be up there with me as well. So that's probably going to go right down to the line. And I know Reese was in the next one, so 4th, but if you don't count Linus 3rd. He's also fast. He qualified. I do believe he qualified in front of me. on, so technically pro and pole. But he had a crash on T1, so that was unlucky for him. But yeah, I think between me, Reese, and Isaac, and if Linus comes back, this is going to go right down to the wire.
Oh, most definitely. And it's going to be interesting to see how the story evolves as time continues to trickle on down. But with Circuit in the Americas in a week's time, a circuit you're going to learn, we'll leave you to the learning process for that one. But just before we do, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or say a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, so I know a decent chunk of my family are all sat around watching this today, so I want to thank them. That's my little niece Juno, Juno Chapman, my little niece Addie Grubb. I want to thank those guys. I want to thank my little sister and a fella who are watching also with those, and they're at my parents' house visiting, so that's where they're all watching it around the TV in the living room there. So, you know, I've been getting messages of support between the races from them, so I want to thank them. And obviously, I want to thank NXTGEN and all our sponsors, you know, Sam Cases and Power Maxed Racing. And I also would like to thank you, Paul, because every week, without fail, you do a fantastic job of the coverage, and it's always fun to watch you back.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It's glad to hear you've got such a supportive network around you of family and friends. But once again, thank you for joining me in the interview room, and congratulations on your performances today. 4 more rounds lie in wait, and can you be our pro champion come the end of it? We'll continue that story in a week's time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Fingers crossed, Paul. Thanks.
All the best. So hearing there from Michael Leese, our final interview for today, and our Pro-Am Championship leader emerging from tonight. The NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver absolutely delivering in all 3 races and also in the preceding qualifying session. And we do apologise with some of the mistakes with regards to classified positions. He was correct there in the fact that Reese was the pole sitter in the Pro-Am class, and Leese was just behind in 2nd place. We will look at our position calculator for the purposes of our interviews next week. But regardless of the mistakes there, one thing we didn't see mistakes from was Michael Leese in terms of his absolute appetite for making sure to target the podium in every race. Missing out on the podium in race number 2 after his one major mistake in the race, coming into what was the last 3 corners on the final lap of race 2, but still putting that behind him very quickly and charging on to race number 3. And definitely right now gaining an advantage with the absence of Linus Broström, albeit still a way to go and anything can happen in the time remaining. And I think for Leese, much like many, he'll only be taking it 1 round and 1 race at a time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And you've heard from the 4 drivers of William Chadwick, firstly, from Altus Esports in the Pro class. We then heard from the fellow pro of Neil Ferrier for 4XR Ferrier Sim Racing. And then we also heard from the 3rd and final pro in our interview group of Mikey Doble for Doble Sim Racing, before then coming on to Michael Leese from NXTGEN Racing Yellow, the Pro class driver there. Congratulations to all 4 of them on their performances today, and thank you to all of them for joining me in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the NXTGEN racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future rendition of the NXTCC, or alternatively you want to know a little bit more about the series we run and other series that we have currently running or due to run in the near future, we can find out all about that and plenty more at our official website firstly, and that's at nextgenracing.co.uk. And as the website appears on screen very shortly, it's the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. We've been hosting leagues for the best part of over 16.5 years, almost coming up to our 17th anniversary on PC and console, and as we continue to go from strength to strength, we'd love to have you there as part of the journey. Currently we have the NXTCC, which you've seen today, ongoing. We also have the conclusion of the front-wheel drive Friday's Clio Cup series coming up soon, as well as the conclusion of the completely free Formula Fixed FF1600 series. But also we have upcoming very soon at the end of June, the return of the GT3 Fixed Championship, and also at the start of July, the endurance version of the Proto GT3 Championship. And we also have a couple of other series lined up for later this year. They're currently under the works, and therefore we'll reveal them in due course, but definitely it's a great time to be on the grid with Next Gen Racing. But if you don't want to go to our website necessarily, but instead you prefer to follow us on social media, we can do exactly that by going to our official Facebook group. That's at facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. And there you can find out all the latest information about our leagues, but also about what we do on the real motorsporting circuit, with a good number of our members being real world drivers, or alternatively real world track marshals, and in a very friendly atmosphere throughout the group. We also like to take a brief moment to thank our sponsors for this series, Douglas Motorsport, the leading race team in driver development, which aims to give drivers a path of progression from LMP3 class racing, or to LMP3 class racing I should say, from karts to Ginetta Juniors and Ginetta GT4, alternatively via British Formula 3. And if you'd like to know more about the team who are specialists in British Formula 3 and Ginetta Cup racing, then do head to their website, and that's douglasmotorsport.com today to find out more information. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our drivers to turn their sights to America as we return there for the Circuit of the Americas. It'll be round number 7 in the state of Texas. It's going to be a showdown between our drivers on the west layout of the circuit, but who is going to come out at the top as the championship continues to build more and more momentum? Tuesday the 6th of June is the date set, and we'll see you there by trackside. But until then, we've been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.